Could please make their way to their seats. As we all get settled tonight, we do have 4 brief community announcements. We'll get started with those, and then we will call the meeting to order. So I'd like to invite Ralph Edwards and Nancy Schultz up to the podium to make an announcement, please. Take it away, yeah.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm Nancy Schultz, Precinct 3, Chair of the Swampscott Historical Commission. And instead of Ralph Edwards, we have Enzo Salon-Serin, who's a very eminent Swampscott poet. And he and I are going to be speaking to you briefly about our upcoming Reading Frederick Douglass Together reading. I'm so pleased to announce that Sure Diversity and the town of Swampscott have been awarded $1,800 to once again put on a reading on July 2nd of Frederick Douglass's iconic speech, "What to the Slave is the 4th of July." And we are going to have a great event from 4 to 7 on July 2nd, Town Lawn. And there will be ice cream. It'll be a very festive event. You can sign up to be a reader on these posters, which Ralph Edwards has. You can use the QR code to sign up, or Ralph will be available at the end of the evening to take pen signatures if you want to just sign up tonight. That would be fine as well. So we promise it's going to be, last year we had 250 people. This year we're hoping to double that, and we're going to have Enzo as our project scholar, and also Tom Dalton, who wrote the book Frederick Douglass, The Lynn Years. And I'm going to introduce Enzo to say a few words about what we're hoping to accomplish in this year's reading.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Enzo Salon-Serin, and as a Swampscott resident of nearly 6 years, I'm especially honored to serve as one of the project scholars for Reading Frederick Douglass Together. I'll also be helping to facilitate a conversation following the reading of What to the Slave is the 4th of July. For me, part of what makes this event matter so much is that it gives us a chance to do something we don't often have time to do, which is pause and reflect on what July 4th means, not only historically, but personally and collectively, especially 250 years into the American democratic experiment. Douglass's speech is often remembered for its critique, but at its core, it is also a call to wrestle honestly with promises and the contradictions of democracy. It invites us to consider what freedom includes, what citizenship requires of us, and how a democratic republic continues to evolve through dialogue, participation, and reflection. This event is not just about forcing agreement, it's about creating a space for civic reflection, historical engagement, and community conversation. And I hope you'll come out for the reading, but I also hope you'll stay for the conversation afterward, because the question Douglass raises is not just a historical one. It is still with us. What does July 4th mean to us now? My hope is that we consider that question together as neighbors, as community members, and as people still thinking through the promises and responsibilities of democracy. Thank you, and I hope to see you there on the 2nd, July 2nd.
Thank you so much.
So again, pick up the poster and sign up tonight if you want. And wearing my other hat, I just want to encourage you to pick up a free Save the Glover lawn sign, and I ask Swampscott, help us save the Glover. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite Jeffrey Blonder to make a quick announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Blonder, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 2, and past commander of the E.F. Gilmore Disabled American Veterans of Swampscott. I wanted to update you on some of our accomplishments this past year serving the veterans of Swampscott. The DAV is a national organization. It's the largest service organization dedicated to serving disabled American veterans. It currently has about 1 million members. The E.F. Gilmore DAV chapter is the largest with 1,200 members and the most active veteran service organization in Essex County. We are a service organization, not a social organization. One of our main goals is to assist veterans in receiving their earned benefits from the VA. In fact, the DAV of Massachusetts has assisted veterans in Massachusetts to receive over $130 million in benefits this year. These are not handouts, but are earned benefits. If there are any veterans out there needing assistance with the VA, please contact us. In March, the E.F. Gilmore sponsored our 4th annual Vietnam Veterans Appreciation Breakfast at the Old Clark School. Over 70 veterans enjoyed breakfast, good conversations, and inspiring speeches. We were honored in the appearance of the newly appointed Secretary of Veteran Services, Eric Gorelick. Each veteran also received a certificate of appreciation from the Secretary and a ceremonial coin. We've been doing this because we know if we did not do it, the Vietnam veterans of Swampscott would not have been recognized, and that would have been a shame. We also have a breakfast in September for the post-9/11 veterans. Also in March, for the 4th year, we participated in a mental health summit. This year, we partnered with the Swampscott Senior Center. Over 100 Swampscott citizens participated in this building, learning about mental health wellness. In fact, we were the gold sponsor for this event, donating $500 to ensure the success of this program. We do this because we know the sad fact of life, that veterans are more likely to suffer depression, anxiety, and PTSD than a non-veteran. 18 veterans a day commit suicide, and veterans are more likely to have substance abuse issues than a non-veteran. We've made it our goal to serve the marginalized, the forgotten, and the broken veteran. In July, we will be sponsoring our 4th annual Veterans Beach Party. This event is partially funded by the Save the Harbor, Save the Bay, Better Beach Grant. This is a great organization, and without their assistance, we could not have this event. And we thank them. Last year, we had over 125 veterans, their families, and community members enjoying a family-friendly, alcohol-free day of food and entertainment. We had games and face painting for the children, food and entertainment for the adults, and we were joined by members of the Chelsea Soldiers Home for one of their rare days out. Most importantly, we provided valuable resources to improve the lives of veterans. This is something we always do at any of our events. We do many things assisting veterans, but I want to get to my main purpose of this discussion. As a combat veteran, I always had a battle buddy when I went outside the wire. My buddy had my back, and I had his back. The DAV has the back of all veterans in Swampscott. I'm asking you to have our back. Over the past 3 years, the E.F. Gilmore DAV has spent close to $20,000 supporting veterans in this area. Please consider making a contribution today to support our efforts. You can make a check payable to the E.F. Gilmore DAV. If you do not have your checkbook, I have pre-addressed envelopes. We also have a Venmo QR code. There are flyers out in the foyer with our information. Our address is 8 Pine Street, Swampscott. All donations will be used to assist veterans. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blonder. I'd like to ask Janelle Cameron to come give us a quick rundown of some upcoming recreation events.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Janelle Cameron, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 3, Secretary of Recreation Commission, Chair of 4th of July Parade, Market Manager, Swampscott Farmers Market, member of CLC, Task Study Force, and Swampscott Rotary. This year's parade is on Sunday, the 28th of June. It's always the last Sunday in June before the 4th of July. We'll start at the regular time around 4 at the middle school and end up at the Strawberry Festival. Everyone is always welcome to join us. The more the merrier, more groups. I've been doing this for over 20 years, so if there's any youngster out there that wants to take this over, you feel free to come see me, and I'll gladly pass it off. Farmers Market opens on Sunday, the 7th of June, and goes to the last Sunday in October with one indoor market on the Sunday before Thanksgiving. If we are looking for volunteers for that too, to set up in the morning and break down the afternoon. We've been very fortunate to have a few high school seniors that have the last 3 years have showed up every week from 8 to 10 and then back 12 to 1:30. So if your children want to do this and get community service, we're looking for their help too. Community service, CLC will be doing a presentation shortly. And Rotaries is service before self. We had the Cahill Run on March 3rd. Next week, we're giving $20,000 in scholarships to seniors at Swampscott High. The last Wednesday of the month, we go to the VFW and make 200 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for My Brother's Table. In the beginning of the month, they don't have a lot of need because people have money. But at the end of the month, there's a lot of need, so we do that every month there. We're also supported the Eagle Scouts in their cannon restoration at the cemetery, and it's a great group to be involved with, so if anybody wants any more information, we meet every other Wednesday, mostly at Mission on the Bay. This Wednesday, it's at Cafe Avellino because we have the Quest for Excellence for the middle school students that we do for them. So anyone wants Rotary information, find me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And finally, I'd like to invite Rachel Taradash to help us acknowledge a milestone that Big Blue Bargains has recently reached. Great. Thank you. All right, I've been informed by the town clerk that a quorum is present, so the meeting will now come to order. First, just a safety announcement. In the extremely unlikely event that we'll have to evacuate the space, there are doors at the front and in the rear. Our muster point will be on the far side of the parking lot. Hopefully we will never need to use those instructions here. And now I'd like all of you to stand, and if you choose, please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. And now join me in welcoming Jeffrey Hosking, who is a student in Swampscott's 8th grade, as he reads a land acknowledgement statement. You can stand here, it's fine.
Hello. Thank you all.
A little closer.
Yeah. We are on native land. The land where our town now resides was referred to as Swampscott, which is from an Eastern Algonquian language meaning at the Red Rocks. Long before the fish house was built in 1896, Swampscott was host to abundant traditional fishing and hunting grounds. As well as the homes of indigenous peoples, we are acknowledged that every moment we live, work, play, pray, gather, and study in this town of Swampscott, we do so on the lands of indigenous peoples who for millennia prior to European colonization called this place home and are still here. Thank you.
As you know, many members of our town boards and committees have recently completed their terms of service. Much of what we achieve together relies on members of our community serving in either volunteer or elected positions. And I'd like to ask anyone who's present tonight who has recently completed a term of service to please stand in place to be recognized. Select board members, school board members, anyone who's recently completed their term of service. Thanks to everyone who did. All right. All right, as we begin the meeting tonight, I just want to point out that tonight's meeting represents a moment of transition. I'm sure you'll notice a number of new faces at the front of the room here, including my own. And it's an honor that our voters have chosen to allow me to serve Swampscott in this new capacity. The town meeting has a very long history and a special role in our Commonwealth, and it's our duty to continue upholding these traditions. It's also an opportunity that we each have as members of the body to evolve the meeting in new ways to serve what our community will face in the future. Now that we have 2 town meetings scheduled annually, the spring meeting will primarily address financial and spending articles, and the fall meeting will primarily address planning and zoning articles. In both meetings, we'll have the chance to debate and vote on proposed bylaws and policies to shape Swampscott for the years ahead. If you're new to town meeting, or just as a reminder, the structure of the meeting is straightforward. The warrant defines the scope and agenda for the meeting through a set of articles that it contains. Each article will be introduced by a member of the board or committee sponsoring it, who will make a motion recommending a course of action for us to take on that article. After the motion is seconded, the person sponsoring it will give a brief presentation, and then we'll begin debate. If you wish to speak in support or opposition of any motion that's on the floor during the meeting, please raise your hand, and when I recognize you, make your way to one of the microphones in the aisles. This is important so that we can hear your comments clearly in the room, on the broadcast, and for the recording of the meeting. Please start by stating your name, any positions that you hold in town, including town meeting member, not to outdo Janelle, and your precinct number. All visitors and non-members should be seating in the back sections, and while you are eligible to be recognized to speak, you will not be able to vote. Our bylaws allow speakers up to 10 minutes of speaking time, up to twice per article. However, you'll note that the most effective statements that we hear are often the most concise. If you have a question about the article, please ask it, and I'll do my best to find someone who can answer it. If you have an idea for a motion that you'd like to make and you're not quite sure how to express it, please just tell me your intent, and I'll help you form the motion in the right context or syntax. If your opinion closely aligns with the statement made by a previous speaker, after you're recognized, you may simply say, "I agree with them," and make your voice heard. Please remember that all comments should be addressed to me as a moderator and not directed at other members. I expect all of us to give each speaker our full attention tonight, and I expect each speaker to engage in civil, respectful debate. I don't think any of us need any more viral moments coming out of Essex County town meetings this year. And if any speaker fails to observe my reminders about maintaining respectful debate, I'll be looking to my buddy Chief Casado over there to back me up. So please remember that any amendments to motions under debate must be submitted to the town clerk in writing. We have forms available. And if I deem that motion to amend to be in order, we will pause debate on the main motion to then address the amendment. My role as moderator is not to shape the outcome of any vote tonight, but to maintain an orderly and efficient debate. Many of you know me to be more of an early bird than a night owl, so the key word in that sentence is efficient. After hearing the key points from both sides, I will entertain any motions to end debate or call the question, and if that is seconded and receives 2/3 vote, we will vote on the motion or amendment itself. Votes will be taken by hand and decided by me, unless I'm in doubt of the outcome or 7 of our members rise to ask for a division, in which case we will take a count, standing vote by sections, and I have a number of counters ready to assist me in that. So now that we've reviewed the mechanics of the meeting, let's get into the content. Article 1 is for reports of town boards and committees. I'd like to begin by inviting Naomi Dreben to give us an update on the Community Preservation Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Naomi Drebin, Precinct 3. I'm asking all members of the Community Preservation Committee to come join me here. I feel so supported. Okay, so just a refresher, the Community Preservation Act, we abbreviate it CPA, is a funding mechanism. There are three purposes. The first is protecting open space and developing recreation. The second is preserving historic resources, and the third is creating affordable housing. That's the reason why we have the CPA. Next slide, please. So just wanted you to meet the members of our committee. Representing affordable housing is Aaron Burdoff. Let me just wave. We have one at-large member who was appointed by the Select Board, Tom Dawley, right behind me here, who we're very fortunate to have him here in Swampscott. He is actually the CPC administrator, the Community Preservation Committee administrator for the town of Wenham. And he's volunteering on our committee and is our chair and has a wealth of information and knowledge. Representing the Capital Improvement Committee is Ryan Hale. Maybe that'll change, we'll see. Conservation Commission is represented by Monica Lagerquist. I'm representing the Finance Committee. Historical Commission is represented by Brad Graham. Brian Longan is representing Open Space and Rec. Jer Germa is representing the Planning Board, and our Housing Authority is represented by Charlie Patzios. I wanted to also thank our intern, Kira Metaxatos, who is a Swampscott High School junior. She came to our last meeting and did a bang-up job taking minutes. So thank you, and we'll look forward to working with you again. Okay, next slide. This is a summary of the criteria for getting funded by the Community Preservation Act. As you can see, all of the segments are represented: open space, historic, recreation, and housing. And funding can be allocated to acquire anything in those categories. Funding can also be allocated to preserve any thing in those categories. But if you look at the second line, create, obviously we can't create a historic property. It has to be historic. So in terms of support for these projects, we can't support maintenance of a lot of them. So open space, historic, and recreation, we can't really support just continuous running or maintenance of those projects. We can support housing, and all the housing we're referring to is affordable housing. And in terms of rehabbing or restoring, you can see we can do that with historic and recreation projects, but we wouldn't be able to fund rehab of open space or affordable housing unless our Community Preservation Act had funded it to begin with. Next slide. Here's a timeline just to remind you of where we're at in our work. This body approved the CPA back in November 24, and over this past year we've been getting organized. We've received training from the Community Preservation Coalition, which we have joined, so that we can access all the resources that are statewide. And of course, we're developing materials because you have to apply for the funds, and we want you to have as easy a time with that as possible. I hope you'll mark your calendars for June 2nd. We are having the first of our public engagement meetings. This one coming right up is going to be a town hall. It's only 1 hour right before our regularly scheduled meeting. We would very much appreciate individuals, representatives of committees, or any organizations that might have an interest in applying for funds to come. And in terms of individuals, we'd really like to know what residents' priorities are. We are basically a grant-making organization, and we'd really like help deciding how to spend the money that your tax dollars have paid for this. Okay, in October, we're going to begin our pre-eligibility applications. So the application is two parts. There's the pre-eligibility application, which is just a one-pager, just a summary of the project, about how much money you think it's going to be, and what category it's in. The second part is the final application. After we determine that your project is eligible, then you can do the second part, and that deadline is in December. Our committee will review the applications, vote on projects during the winter, and then 1 year from now, this body will vote on our recommendations for the expenditure of the funds. So we are vetting the projects that are submitted, but we're not the decision makers. Town meeting is the decision maker on what gets funded. And then allocations are made in July. That's when we'll have the money ready to give out. Next slide, please. Here's our quick and easy budget. We have over $885,000 in the total budget. 10% must be put into each reserve for each of the 3 categories. We have a little administrative cost there. And if we don't use the administrative funds, we can drop that into the reserves. So that is where your money is going. 1% surcharge on our property taxes is going into this fund. Next slide. Here are some examples of local towns, what they did with their CPA money. Nahant renovated the life-saving station. They're developing some revenue from renting it out as an event space. In Salem, the bandstand and wrought iron fence all around that central common across from it's the Hawthorne Hotel, right?
Yes.
That was all restored. Beverly, just for a laugh, they did some sound mitigation for their pickleball courts with CPA dollars. And they also used CPA to contribute to the construction of 85 new affordable housing units. So those are some examples of the kinds of things that we can do in town with this fund. Next. So this is a picture of our public housing, and in back, the gray building is the Westcott, which is new. Our public housing is 100% affordable housing, and the Westcott is partially affordable housing. So just wanted to show you some of the things that we have that we could enhance. Please do visit our website. This is our website. You can use the pull down under boards and committees on the town's website, or you can just go to this World Wide Web address. Remember to come see us on June 2nd at Town Hall at 6 o'clock, and please do check out the application and other information if you're interested at this site. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Drieben. Next, I'd like to invite Hannah Cloud to give us an update from the Cultural Council. Just a quick announcement. If anyone's coming in since we've started, I noticed a few people. If you are members, please come and check in with the clerk if you did not receive a sticker. These are the people who are about to sit down who don't have stickers. So help us out if someone comes and sits next to you during the meeting and they haven't checked in. Please send them up to get there to check in with the clerk. Thank you. Ms. Cloud.
Hi, I didn't know I was doing anything. I'm the chair of the Swampscott Cultural Council. I put this together because I thought we were just gonna have it in the background as we walked in. These are the things that we've completed. So we had a really good year because during COVID, basically what happened was things were granted out, monies were granted out, and we sort of couldn't figure out what had happened, and then Patrick and I figured out basically that not all the money that had been granted out was actually claimed. And so we got to give out almost $24,000 this year. We normally give out about $8,000. So if you apply next year, do not expect the same circumstances, but as a result, we were able to fund everything on this list. The things that are in the first category have already happened. There was a great event at the elementary school. You can find out all about this on our website that is on the Mass Cultural Council page, but I also want to encourage you to take advantage of the upcoming events, the Harbor and Marine Festival, all of the Summer by the Sea concert series, the Juneteenth flag raising celebration, and then Joe is going to be letting the world know about the high school video installation project that is in the works. Conservancy has a native lawn alternatives talk coming up. The senior center has well, that's not open to everybody, sorry. Community Cooking Through Spur, you can sign up to make about 1 billion lasagnas to support local people who like lasagna. And if you notice on your way, it's actually not just for people who like lasagna, but if you notice on your way out of the meeting, or actually it's gonna be dark, but on the corner of Paradise and Burl, we have a new electrical box painting. Check it out, it looks really good. It's by an artist named Emily Jewett. And then we'll see how this goes, a musical instrument lending program. If you or a child of yours is taking advantage of this program, let me know, because that will help us know whether we want to do it again next year. The Cultural Council is for all of you. Everyone here who wants to run a program in town that has a cultural, very broad, that's a very broad umbrella, guys, has a cultural component. You can apply for a reasonable amount of money and run a program in town. We have an Instagram, we have a Facebook page. If you follow us, you'll find out when the grant cycle opens, and I highly encourage everyone to take advantage of this local money that we get from the state.
Thank you, Ms. Cloud. Right, and I'd like to invite Annika Kumli to come up and give us an update on the Community Life Center Feasibility Task Force.
Hi, folks. My name is Annika Kumli. I'm the chair of the Swampscott Community Life Center Feasibility Advisory Task Force. It's quite a mouthful. We can actually go to the next slide if we could. So we were convened out of a town meeting actually 2 years ago. We started in January of 2025. And what essentially happened was at this lovely town meeting 2 years ago, there was a need presented that we in Swampscott have a couple of things going on that could maybe use a little attention. The first is that the rec department has no permanent space for their indoor programming. They are currently using the lovely Clark School, but that is a temporary agreement that comes up for renewal. And then we also have the Swampscott Senior Center, and Heidi Weir is doing such an incredible job that her programming is incredibly in demand and pulling folks in from across the community. And they unfortunately do not have adequate space to meet their needs. And so they are also using the Clark School to help expand and make sure that they have the space to fulfill all of their programming demands. So, and then lastly, we also here don't necessarily have a central gathering place for community activities and programming. So what happened was, if we could go to the next slide, we were formed with the sort of remit to evaluate, would there be a need for a space, a community life center of sorts in Swampscott? And what we were tasked with, many folks from across Swampscott town government were pulled in, and many of them are here tonight. Thank you so much for being here, to help us figure this out. So our whole remit is to just do two things. One, figure out if the community wants something like this. And then two, if they do, whether or not it's feasible. So what we've done is, over the course of the last, call it 16, 17 months, we put ourselves together. We have put out both an RFQ and an RFP for a firm to help us do an evaluation of the sites we have here and figure out how we're going to gather feedback from across as many folks in our community as possible. So you may have seen on your arrival here today, We're handing out flyers. This has a survey. Please, 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 please fill this out. Give it to your friends, your neighbors, your family, folks at the grocery store. A great way to build community, just, you know. So what we're looking for is to gather as much feedback as we possibly can. This survey is live, and what we're looking for is a couple of things. One, do you think that this is something that would add value to the community? Is it important? And two, if it is, what would you want to see? Is this something that you would use for recreation, for programming, as a place to get coffee? And then where in town would you want to see something like this? So if we could actually go to the next slide. These are the lovely folks on the committee. So if you know them, ask them. They're wonderful resources, particularly Heidi and Charlotte, who are leading two of the very important services that we have here that is the remit for this exploration as it stands. And if we could go one more slide beyond. This is all the work that we've done to date. And right now we are in this community feedback gathering place. So please, if you have time, the survey doesn't take more than about 4 minutes at max to fill out, and we want to hear from you, we want to hear from you, we want to hear from as many of you as possible. So if you do not have one of these, we're happy to hand them out, happy to make them available to you. We'll have some available to grab on the way out as well. And I think one more slide. This is really where we are in the process. So once we gather as much feedback as possible, then we'll start to analyze it and figure out, all right, what does this mean? What direction does this point us in? If folks do want something like this, where could this possibly go? And all we're doing is trying to give the town information to make a decision on how to move forward. So that's really our remit, and we hope to hear from you, and thanks so much.
Thank you, Ms. Kumley. And finally, I'd like to invite Angela Ippolito and Jer Germa to give us an update from the Planning Board.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm Angela Ippolito. I am a town meeting member from Precinct 5 and a member of the Planning Board. So my colleague Jer and I wanted to come up and just go through a few of the projects that we get asked about all the time and give you a quick update on these particular topics. And I'm going to go through the first one for you, our master plan. Our master plan committee recently completed their review and update of our master plan. So now we have a new master plan that's good for the next 10 years. 2026 to 2035, which sounds crazy, but there you have it. The Select Board and the Planning Board will meet jointly on June 17th to review together and to adopt the master plan. The master plan is online. If you want to read it yourself or you'd like to just get more information, please feel free to take a look on the town's website. And I think it's under Community Development Master Plan. Okay, I think we can go to the next slide, please. Vinnon Square. So in 2023, town meeting passed the Vinnon Square Overlay District. The goal was to re-envision an old commercial site, a very tired old commercial site, and to redevelop it as a walkable, attractive, mixed-use neighborhood. So no doubt all of you have seen the construction happening at Swampscott Mall. Vinnon Square, incidentally, the overlay district encompasses both malls on either side of Paradise Road. In this presentation, we're talking about the Swampscott Mall side. So if you've seen that development, you've already seen that the developer has begun the project by revitalizing and redesigning the facades of existing mall buildings, including our anchor stores. We've added a new tenant who has already proven to be quite a hit. You've probably also noticed they're framing up for 3 additional new structures throughout the parking lot. They are soon to expand our dining options, so stay tuned for that. And the third part of this is to create new housing. And the housing you can see is that S-shaped building all the way over by Essex Street. It will be it's according to our inclusionary zoning bylaw, 10% of the units will be affordable. And it's a fully residential building. This new building doesn't require the destruction of any nature areas. It's built with the newest energy efficient and sustainable technology. And its infrastructure improvements that have already been implemented and more to come have happened not only underneath the site, but all the way through Swampscott Mall to improve the drainage and the water infrastructure in that area. And then finally, what connects it all is the pedestrian access. You can actually go to the next slide too. Well, I'll just point out there's a courtyard and terrace. So there are green spaces built into the building, hence the S shape. There's a courtyard on the residential building that connects it to Stop and Shop, and from there connects to a very wide pedestrian network. So all of the walkways in front of the existing mall will be widened for ease of accessibility. There'll be benches, plantings, and so forth, and you'll be able to easily walk from one end of the mall all the way through the other. And in between, you'll find courtyards, new and expanded pedestrian walkways, landscaping, lighting, artwork, pocket parks, and outdoor spaces. This is a significant investment by a private owner that will benefit all the residents. You can go on to the next slide, please. And one more, actually. There you go. Thank you. It'll benefit all the residents in town. So it's not for the benefit of a small group. It's not a very isolated pocket of people that are going to enjoy this. It really is for all of us. There'll be we're anticipating an enormous stimulating economic boom in that area that will bolster our municipal tax revenue, which makes all of us happy. And now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jer, who will deliver the comments on the next few topics.
Good evening. I'm Jer Jerma, Precinct 3, Vice Chair of the Historic District Commission, Planning Board member, and CPC member. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the areas over by the ocean. The Hadley School is definitely moving forward with Del Mar Swampscott, developing the Hadley Hotel. Updated plans are going to be reviewed by the Select Board and the Planning Board during the month of June. So I know a lot of people have been asking us, not seeing a lot of going on the ground there, but all of the planning is moving forward. Over at the Hawthorne Advisory Committee completed their work last fall and submitted the report to the Select Board on November 18th. Since then, the Select Board voted to lease the Hawthorne property to the Swampscott Center for the Performing Arts through June 30th, 2028, which leaves us an ample amount of planning time. The Swampscott Center for the Performing Arts will operate as an entertainment venue with live music and comedy, and Maria's Gourmet will be operating a food shop in the former fish store location for the duration of the lease. Plans are to open by July 1st, pending all appropriate permits, and to offer a dinner menu and a full-service bar. In the meantime, the long-term RFP discussion for the Hawthorne site will be on the Select Board's agenda in the month of June. The Select Board plans to work with the Planning Board, the Director of Community Development, the Senior Town Planner, and other relevant town committees to finalize the long-term development strategy and ultimately issue an RFP as soon as possible. Now, all of this is occurring in and around the Humphrey Street Overlay District. This is going to tie the whole thing together. This was adopted by town meeting back in 2015. And I think a lot of the long-term residents in town really have seen how Humphrey Street has come together over the last few years as a destination. It's a lot more lively than it was before this. This overlay district encourages a mix of uses, fosters a sense of place, and connects to the natural waterfront environment. The guidelines emphasize continuity with existing use and development patterns for optimal neighborhood activation and cohesion and create visual harmony. At our fall town meeting, the planning board will propose amending this district to strengthen some of those provisions and to assure that it moves forward in the direction that it's moving. So thank you all, and we look forward to talking about those things in the fall.
And for more information on any of these topics, please go to the town's website under Community Development, look on Town Projects, and you will be able to see update and status of all of these projects. Also, all of the meetings that are held regarding these projects are public meetings. You can always check the calendar and feel free to attend. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The town administrator has a brief announcement.
I'm Nick Connors, the town administrator. I just wanted to highlight that tonight we offered childcare for the first time that Rec put together. And it was a pilot program, I know with relatively late notice, but I wanted to highlight that we plan to also offer it in the fall, so we hope more folks will register and take advantage of it, but I just wanted to highlight that although it's a pilot, we plan to be moving forward with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dick. All right, now before we get to the articles that will require votes tonight, it's important that we swear in any new members of town meeting. So if you are new, either newly elected or became a member during the caucus tonight, please stand in place and our town clerk will swear you in.
Does it work now? Can you hear me? Thank you. If you would, raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and will support the Constitution thereof, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent on me as town meeting member for the town of Swampscott, according to the best of my abilities and understanding agreeably to the bylaws and the charter of the town and the Constitution and the laws of this Commonwealth. Congratulations. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all for participating. All right, let's move to Article 2, to approve the bills of prior fiscal year. Mr. Hartman from the Finance Committee will walk us through this one.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Eric Hartman, Precinct 1, Finance Committee Chair of the Finance Committee, Town Meeting Member. The Finance Committee recommends the town vote to authorize payment of bills of prior years totaling $41,963.75 as detailed in the printed warrant, and as funding therefore to transfer $41,963.75 from free cash. I move the recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Is there a second? Thank you. Mr. Hartman?
So this is a article we have pretty much every year when bills come in from vendors that come in after the year is closed out. So we use free cash to pay these bills. The largest one, as you'll see in the printed warrant, had to do with several years of invoices from Express Scripts related to medical claims for some of our town employees. So the issue's been resolved. We feel we need to pay the bills, so this is just, as I said, fairly routine article.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak on Article 2? Okay. I think we need a motion to...
We have a motion. It's seconded, I think.
Okay, so we'll take a vote. Great. All right, so all in favor of moving forward on Mr. Hartman's motion, please raise your hand. Thank you. All opposed? It is unanimous. Moving to Article 3, please refer to the yellow handout that you received on your way in for the latest And Mr. Hartman.
The Finance recommends the town vote to amend the FY 2026 departmental budget as printed in the warrant, with the following exception, as shown on the yellow handout entitled Article 3, Amend Appropriations for Fiscal Year 2026 Operating Budget. Line 90452-52424, replacement carts/parts increased by $330,000 to $330,863, and as funding therefore to transfer $330,000 from free cash. I move the recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Is there a second? Thank you. Mr. Hartman?
So as many people probably understand, the town has been negotiating a new trash and recycle contract for a long time now. Our current contract expires at the end of this year. And one of the provisions in the contract that is not quite yet signed, but is what I hear coming very down to short strokes, is that there's a requirement to have new recycle bins for every house, every residence. So the plan is to move to a consistent approach. We already have trash bins that everybody has a bin for. We'd be moving away from just having your regular recycle bins, have a standard bin that can be picked up by an automated collection truck. So we need to have a new bin for everybody. It costs about $330,000. The options are we pay for them outright using free cash, which is what's recommended. We could also purchase them through the capital budget and bond them at our typical bonding rates. I think we got advice from town council we could bond them for 5 years. The third option is the vendor has offered to lease them to us over either 3, 5, or 7 years. So the Finance Committee agreed that the best approach is to use free cash. This is really a one-time event. It's not a recurring expense. It's kind of what free cash is there for. And the leasing terms that were offered by the vendor were really not favorable. It had implied interest rates that were really close to double what we could get if we bonded them ourselves. The other reason to take care of it through free cash is if we bond them ourselves or take the financing offer from the vendor, that will add a recurring operating expense to the budget every year as we pay for the cost of those bins.
Thanks. Yes, here. Please come up to one of the microphones.
Hi, Mary Webster, Precinct 3. If this does pass, 2 questions. How big are those recycle bins going to be? Some people have 2. And secondly, what do we do with the ones that we have? Do we have to get rid of those ourselves, or does the town take over that for us?
Thank you.
I can try to answer, but I think somebody on the committee who was working with this contract might be better suited for that.
Okay. Solid waste, or Nick, do you want to take on? Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay. There are 2 sizes that are being considered currently. One is 65 gallons and one is 96. That final determination will be made shortly. I think at the current time, the recommendation would be go to 96 gallons, so there are no concerns that we don't have enough space for a resident to be able to, use it on a weekly basis. On the question of returning anything that you have currently, I'm looking to weigh in to see if that is not something that I have the answer to right now. I'm going to ask Wayne Spritz to answer that if that's okay. Mary, did you have a follow-up?
So in the past, what we have done is actually take them back. And however, we haven't really discussed that to be honest with you, in depth. However, what I think we would be recommending is that you can reuse them for other purposes. I think the last time we went about this 5 years ago, people were upset that they actually got rid of them. They wish they had kept them. So we're gonna be holding some additional public hearings and get some feedback from the community. It would be my recommendation that you hold on to them and use them for yard waste. Other than that, we will have to come up with a take-back program.
And we can communicate details of a take-back program in short order. We're continuing conversations with the vendors, so we can post an update to the town website.
Just, can you hold on 1 second? I'll come back to you. Thanks.
Dennis Pilar, Precinct 4. Just still have some jitters from the last time they moved our trash to the little tiny black things. Even a 96-gallon recycling may be, sufficient for most families. My family, when all my kids are home, we're going to go through more than one. Is there any way that we could purchase a second one ourselves to have 2 recycling bins available? Just trying to go through, I just worry that we're just opening up a situation where we're not going to be able to contain all the trash in 2 bins, and then we have additional, if there's no bags or what have you, it's going to be a problem.
Great. Thank you for the question. Mr. Spitz, maybe you come back up to the podium in case there's additional questions. Okay.
So there will be an option for a second barrel to be purchased through the town. We are working on the details of that, and that would also be true for trash. For pay-as-you-throw, that will continue, where if it's a need where, periodically, and I know this isn't necessarily the case you just outlined, but if you periodically need an additional bag, you can put it on top of the barrel as is, and they will either come out of the truck to throw it in or try to pick it up and put it all in one fell swoop. So both of those options will be addressed with the final plan that we put forward.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Jim Smith, Precinct 5. We heard again tonight that the current barrels we're using for trash came 5 years ago. We heard from the chair of the Finance Committee that these new barrels for our recycles are meant to be picked up automatically, as were the barrels that came 5 years ago. Is there any, are we going to have this pick up automatically, or will we continue with the 2 individuals on each truck? Most communities do have the automatic pickup. I'm just wondering if that's why we're buying this tonight. Will we automatically get the automatic pickups in the future?
Thank you. Mr. Connors?
Thank you for that question. It is an automated system that we'll be putting into place. The idea with purchasing with the current year free cash is to get them deployed as quickly as possible so that we can go fully automated as soon as possible. The trash will be picked up automated at the beginning of the new contract, which is July 1st, and the recycling will be picked up automated as soon as we're able to get these deployed, which is why we came forward with this option tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, here.
Hi, Chris Mancini, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 3. 2 quick questions. The expense of $330K, in theory, saves us money in the long term because of the automatic pickup. Just wondering if that's accurate. And currently, there is a limit on trash that can fit in the barrel, and there's no limit on recycling, right? You can put out as much recycling as you want. Does that change with these new barrels? Are we now limited to 1 or 2 barrels as we purchase? Thanks.
Thank you very much. Mr. Connors?
So yes, the reason we're pursuing this is as a cost savings. If we do not have them deployed each month at their manual, there actually be an escalator in our contract, so we're trying to limit that or eliminate that completely. On the question of a limit, there is the 96-gallon limit to begin, and then there will be an opportunity for additional barrels. So in theory, there could be as many barrels as are necessary, but the goal is to have that one 96-gallon barrel, except in cases as was described earlier, where a residence has, the whole family back for the summer or back from school or whatever the case may be, or a need that it would exceed that. Does that answer your question? It would have to go in a recycling, a standard recycling
your
barrel.
cardboard boxes next to your thing like people do at this point.
No, and what we're actually thinking on cardboard, we've spoken to the vendors that we've had these discussions with about even having the opportunity for drop-off at the DPW yard throughout the month, and they would sort of take that as filled. It's certainly something that we considered, thinking about the fact that this one container for recycling is a little different, especially in the economy where Amazon is delivering so much and you have so many cardboard boxes. So we're looking for alternatives. But yes, it would just be whatever we can fit within that barrel.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Can you hear me? Okay. Anthony Artizone, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. You talked about having multiple, like being able to purchase additional barrels for recycling and trash. Would that be a one-time expense? How would that work? What's the cost?
Thank you. Mr.
So sorry. The expense for an additional barrel would likely be annual because it would be adding to the tonnage and the tipping cost for the community. And so a user that was exceeding that 96-gallon limit on a regular basis, it would be an annual fee for that second barrel.
And do you have any idea of how much that would be at the time, or no?
We'll be able to finalize that in the coming weeks. I don't have that number for you tonight.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yes?
Damon Damati, Precinct 6, town meeting member. How big is 96 gallons? Well, I mean, like compared to the garbage pail that we have now, the town issued, how much bigger is it?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Connors, do you?
I think
it's twice as big.
It's 43.5 inches tall, 29.75 inches deep, and wide, and 35.5 inches deep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it doesn't help me that much.
All right, so Mr. Spritz, do you have any more details on the dimensions of the barrels from the solid waste committee? Or?
So is that about twice as much as, at least twice as big as the garbage
It's
barrel?
about 3 times the size of the existing barrels.
All right. And how much were those? I'm just thinking if you're like my mom, who'll be 90 in November, and she has to, I mean, she's not, she lives in Salem, but she has to lug. But if you're elderly or something else, like how much are these gonna weigh? Are these like gonna be behemoths to actually like lug out to the street? And where are they put for automatic pickup? Do they have to be put in a very specific position?
Great, thank you. Sounds like we have a number of practical questions. Mr. Connors, do you want to entertain us tonight? Do you have any of the details handy?
I think what I can share is that, yes, we will want to place the barrels out at the end of your property on the street so that they're able to be picked up. From a size standpoint, we can work to get one at Town Hall so folks can actually come and see it. I believe that if you were to drive through Lynn on a trash day, their larger barrels are actually 94 or 95 gallons. They're all in that same window. They are larger than what we have for trash. But they are, not so large that you're not able to maneuver them. But we will, Solid Waste Advisory Committee had talked about trying to get one to Town Hall so you'd be able to see it. So I hope that answers your question. I can't see you back there any longer.
Great, thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Catherine Wilson, Precinct 3. 2 questions. One, what if we vote no? What are the options then? How does that affect the negotiations going on for this new contract? And number 2, Mr. Connors, you mentioned that if someone wants to purchase the second barrel for recycling, they'll have to pay an annual fee for that. So if I have recycling, I have a lot sometimes and I need 2 barrels, but I don't need to use it every week, I have to pay for that extra barrel every week, every year. Is that what you're saying?
That is what I described. I think that we would love to come up with an alternative for drop-off for an episodic type need like that. If there's a party or if there's an event at your home that requires that. But yes, as described, a second barrel for annual use would require an annual fee. If the town chooses to vote no, if the body chooses to vote no, then the cost for manual pickup will be applied monthly by all the vendors that we've spoken to. And so that would incur an additional cost every month that would far exceed over the course of a year the cost of the barrels if we're able to purchase them with this free cash after being authorized this evening.
Do you have an estimate of what that over cost would be?
The additional cost? It's approximately $470,000 a year. It's $40,000 a month, just under $40,000 a month for manual pickup.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks. Ms. Wilson, did you have any further comments? Okay, great, thank you. Yes, sir.
George Briones, town meeting member, Precinct 1. So just for the sake of clarity, with the operation going into fully automated, is that going to lower our costs from what the present cost is for us?
Thank you.
I had planned to speak in a little more detail on the next article, but I'm happy to answer the question now. What it lowers is the cost for the service going forward. We are not going to a lower price than we currently pay. The contract that we've had in place has been in place basically for 10 years. It was with JRM, and then with its successor, Republic Waste. And so the contract going forward introduces costs for recycling, which never existed in the past, costs for fuel that did not exist in the past. Obviously, the automation versus manual is a difference in cost based on which direction we choose to go as a community. We have negotiated for a number of months and have worked closely with our DEP technical assistants, and I really want to highlight that the Solid Waste Advisory Committee spent time even prior to my arriving here understanding the market, understanding the players in the market and what might be available. So it lowers our costs as compared to if we were to go manual, but it does not lower our costs based on what the contract costs today versus what it will cost going into the new fiscal year. Does that answer your question, sir?
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Katie Holt. I'm Precinct 3 meeting member. I do have a question about the cost of what recycling will be like as opposed to regular garbage. Right now, we're incentivized to recycle because it's free, right? Because we only have our limited smaller black garbage can, and then we have to pay extra money for those big blue bags. Will the big blue bags cost more to continue people to recycle? Alternatively, will it cost less to recycle with your extra container, or will that be into consideration? Because I have to say, being incentivized to recycle for free definitely is better for our environment. It's, you know, showing our children how to be good stewards of the earth, as opposed to if it costs the same amount of money, there's going to be a lot of people who just throw things away that could otherwise be recycled.
So the benefit that we would derive from recycling that continues to be focused on putting the right material in and taking care of what you put in and when is that we do gain, we share in the value of our recycling as it is resold as a commodity following its tipping at the handling facility. So right now, the material we send is not very contaminated. It is something that is useful to them on their end when they try to resell. We are currently not paying because the contract didn't allow for it, but we're also not deriving any benefit from the commodity that we create. The benefit that we have going forward is that we have a tipping fee, which is a per ton cost, but then we're also getting 80% of the value of anything that they resell, so that lowers our tipping fee. So as long as we continue to do everything we can to put good recycling in and to make our best efforts as a community, we will save more and more money off that tipping cost, which prior to this new contract didn't exist, but in all options going forward, it will exist. We will always have to pay for tipping of our recycling going forward, but we've done a really good job of putting good material into the system so far. And so going forward, if we continue to do that, it will lower our tipping costs for every ton that we have recycled. Does that answer your question?
Actually, my question is more, how will everyday people at the store decide not to buy just another blue bag rather than recycle things? That's really what I want to make sure we're doing moving forward. If we're going to limit how much recycling we're going to let people put out.
Yeah. So if you have additional comments, could you please make them into the microphone so we can all hear? And if you could please try to state your question concisely for Ms. Connors to answer. Thank you.
Yes, apologies for not using the microphone. I'm concerned this will cost more money for people to recycle than it will be for people to throw their garbage away. So people will throw recyclables away. I understand what you're saying in terms of how the town will benefit on the municipal level, but how will individuals still be encouraged to recycle rather than just throw things away if it'll cost the same amount of money?
Thank you.
I apologize if I didn't answer the question exactly before, but the benefit to the community at large is also the benefit to the individual residents because it lowers our overall cost if we are not just throwing recyclables into the trash. We will be paying per ton a very similar price if you don't count that value that we get back, that 80% return that we get. So if you were to put material into the trash, you're paying the say $125 a ton. If you're putting material into recycling, it's $125 a ton, but we receive a rebate for the quality of the material that we put in. So we are all saving money individually, and if we put it all into trash, we have no opportunity to recoup any of it by putting good material into the recycling side and making the commodity more worthwhile. I'm sorry if I'm not answering your question, but I'm trying.
Thank you. Thank you. So there's a motion to end debate and vote on the motion Mr. Hartman made on Article 3. So all those in favor of ending debate, please raise your hand. Thank you. We will now move to vote on the motion Mr. Hartman made on Article 3. All those in favor of Article 3? Thank you. All opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you. Moving to Article 4. We'll be speaking about the appropriations for the fiscal year FY27 operating budget. In this case, you get to refer to the blue handout that you received on your way in. I was informed before the meeting that Select Board voted 5-0 in favor of the budget that's being presented today by Mr. Hartman.
Good evening. The Finance Committee recommends adoption of each separate numbered line item as printed in the column entitled Finance Committee Recommended Budget FY 2027, as printed in the warrant, with the following exceptions as shown on the blue handout entitled Article 2, Amendment for Appropriation for Fiscal Year 2027 Operating Budget. Line 90452-52000, Solid Waste and Recycling Contract. Increase from $1,797,302 to $2,004,282, and line 90452-52420, decrease from $13,800 to 0. And further that the sum of $87,041,794 be raised and appropriated as follows. Raise and appropriate from taxes and other local receipts and state aid, $79,596,061, not including state assessments and offsets of $1,463,002 that do not require appropriation. Sewer rates, $2,946,838. Water rates, $4,169,136. Public education and governmental cable TV access funds, $149,759. Solid waste funds, $180,000. I move the recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Thank you. Mr. Hartman?
So before I get into the budget presentation in general, I think I'm just going to talk about these specific changes, which once again relate to our solid waste and recycling contract that we've been talking about already. So the budget that was originally printed in the warrant, when that was printed, we did not know where the trash negotiations were heading. We knew they were heading higher, but we didn't have final numbers. So we had about a 15% placeholder for increased cost for that one budgeted line item. Now we're much closer to closing this deal, and we need to add another $206,980 of cost to that line item. So that's our starting point. In order to fund that, we're going to reduce a line called yard waste that had $13,800 already in the budget, because the new contract already takes care of picking up yard waste. So we don't need that separate $13,800. We also got some good news on our state aid. So we're expecting an additional $111,094 in unrestricted state aid. So that will help offset this increase as well. And the difference, the recommendation of the Finance Committee, is to let that remaining $82,086 fall to use of additional excess levy, which, as we know at this point in time, we're really just voting on the operating budget, and the use of excess levy is an estimate as the year continues to play out and we set the tax rates in the fall. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Hartman. I do want to clarify a remark I made. The Select Board's unanimous support was for this blue piece of paper, not for the entire budget that's in the warrant. Okay, so as you may know, Article 4 is the appropriation, the entire budget. We are going to go page by page, and then if anyone has any questions or comments about any of the blocks of spending, the subtotals are the blue lines below the amounts in that section. So in your printed warrant, this will begin on page 14.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes,
if I may.
sir.
Just clear, I intend to do a presentation before we go through the line by line.
Oh, sure, okay.
If that's okay with you.
Yeah, let's do that first. Thanks, Art.
That's why I got my water. I'm going to be here a while.
Okay, sorry to get ahead of myself there.
All right.
Mr. Hartman, you want to take us through your presentation, and then
Thank
we'll look
you.
at the budget itself. Thank you.
Thank you. If we could advance to the next slide. So tonight I'm going to walk the town meeting through the recommended fiscal budget for 2027. This was again a challenging budget season, but also a very collaborative one. The Finance Committee, the Select Board, Capital Improvement Committee, the School Committee, and school staff, and many others, town administrator and finance staff, have been working for several months to present the balanced budget that we present tonight. There have been numerous public meetings, several joint meetings, really we consider them mini financial summits that we've been trying to hold, where committees and boards worked collaboratively to get us to the budget that we're presenting tonight. So here's the headline in the budget. The budget before you is balanced and level serviced. It does not represent increased services or the expansion of town or school services. In fact, from a staffing perspective, it represents a 1.5 full-time equivalent, or FTE, reduction on the town side and a 1 FTE reduction on the school side. So when we first started talking about the budget, the initial budget presented by the town administrator to the select board, it had about a $2.6 million use of excess levy. That was when we first started the process. Over the last several months, with continued discussions, we've been able to reduce that by $1 million with contributions from both the town and the school. So this allowed us to reduce, but unfortunately not eliminate, the need for excess levy. And now we're down to a use of about $1.6 million. So the Finance Committee supports the budget that's before you tonight, but we also want to be clear that excess levy capacity is not a permanent solution. It gives the town flexibility, but it does not eliminate the need to address the structural issues that we have in our budget, where recurring revenues are not meeting the recurring expenses that the town incurs. If you go to the next slide, please. So town meeting will remember that last year, the FY 2026 budget also used about $2.1 million of excess levy capacity. So, and just for the new members, excess levy capacity is unused taxing authority from previous years. And because Swampscott had previously been levying at a rate that's lower than what Prop 2.5 would allow, we have this calculated unused capacity that we could effectively store up. And that past fiscal discipline has served the town well. It's given us more flexibility than many other towns and communities that I'm sure you're probably hearing about in the newspaper. But the flexibility is limited. So while we're not asking for a Prop 2.5 override this year, the FY 27 budget does rely on taxing above the typical 2.5% plus new growth. So, and we wouldn't be able to do that if we didn't have the excess levy capacity, but the distinction is really that it doesn't matter to the taxpayer. The taxpayer is still being asked to pay more than they'd normally pay under Prop 2.5. The good news is that we didn't pay it in previous years because we had taxed under, but now that the time is coming where we need to ask for those funds. So, as I said, we're hearing a lot about other neighboring towns facing these same pressures, and Swampscott clearly is not immune to the same economic and inflationary pressures that are in the world today. So for many reasons that we're going to discuss tonight, the cost of operating the town is growing at a rate that exceeds our revenue growth. And while we have several projects, some of which we heard about tonight, that promise the opportunity for future revenue increases, they're not online today. So we need to find a way to balance our budget using whatever means we have available to us until we can get some of those projects underway, producing additional revenues for the town. If you could advance the slide, please. One other important factor that really gave the Finance Committee some more comfort to present this budget to you tonight is that the town's finance staff recently did a 5-year forecast. So as with any forecast, we recognize there's uncertainty, especially after the first year, but the forecast was put together using conservative revenue forecasts and reasonable increases in our operating expenses. And under that forecast, the town is likely to need additional levy capacity in both FY28 and 2029. So if the forecast is right and we don't do anything different, I'll be standing here next year and the year after saying, by the way, we need to use some more of that excess levy capacity. And even by using that in 2029, the money will be gone, the excess levy will be exhausted, and the forecast would say we need another $500,000 override if we can't find ways to either cut our expenses or increase our revenues. So it's not a rosy forecast, but it's also not an immediate fiscal cliff. The revenue assumptions that we're using in the forecast assume flat state aid, so no increase in state aid. So that's a conservative assumption to be calling for no increases in state aid. It also doesn't include any of the revenues that may come from some of those, the development in Vinton Square or the hotel. Also very conservative. So if these revenues materialize in the future, then the outlook could become better. But at the same time, the Finance Committee believes that the town needs to act now on some of the opportunities that we have to control our costs. These include areas like evaluating the financial impact of remaining in the state health insurance program versus considering other options. Understanding the long-term budget budget impact of the collective bargaining agreements that we enter into. Considering targeted user fees where appropriate, including such items as parking and potentially residential trash pickup charges. Continuing to evaluate regionalization opportunities with other communities, maximizing our local receipts, and supporting appropriate development opportunities that can help expand the tax revenue base. These are not simple decisions, and none of them will solve the problem individually, but taken together, they're the type of actions that could help reduce or at least delay the need for an operating override in the future. Another important item in the 5-year forecast is our pension funding. We've talked about this many times, but Swampscott has been on a long-term schedule to fully fund our unfunded pension liability. The plan currently is for FY 2031. If we remain on that schedule and our investment return assumptions continue to hold, then the forecast shows that our pension costs will begin to decline significantly once that liability is fully funded. That means that in 2031, instead of having the typical 5% increase that we've been experiencing in pension costs, our costs will go down by about $1.3 million. And that's the year we fully fund. Then the next year, we'll go down by another $5.2 million. So that future relief is significant, but it's not immediate, it's not here now, and it also doesn't mean the town will suddenly have excess money without competing demands. One obvious use of the pension savings would be to meaningfully address the town's unfunded OPEB liability. So OPEB, for new members, is other post-employment benefits, which is basically the retirement cost that we have to continue to pay for retired employees. We've been paying that on an as-you-go basis, so every time we pay the bill for whatever the costs are each year versus creating a funded liability that would take care of those costs. So, to be clear, the Finance Committee is not suggesting that the forecast is going to be easy to meet or without risk, but we do believe the town has some flexibility if we start working on some of these issues now to, as I said, help avoid or at least mitigate a future override request. Next slide, please. So if we look at the total recommended general operating budget for 2027, we're proposing an increase of $2.9 million or $3.9 million over the 2026 budget. I just want to briefly mention that my slides are not updated for the kind of floor of town meeting change we just did today around the trash budget. So there are a number of specific cost drivers that can contribute to our increase. But before we look at the overall increase, let's just look at, it's important for town meeting to understand some of the nature of the costs that are embedded within this budget. Not every cost in an annual operating budget is fully discretionary in that particular year. Some expenses are driven by prior commitments, long-term financial policies, contractual obligations, or costs that are largely outside the town's direct control. For example, our health insurance costs are increasing by 10% over FY26 in the budget. As I said before, the town participates in the Massachusetts Group Insurance Commission, or GIC, and they're estimating and telling the town they expect a 10% increase in insurance costs. So this is not a cost increase created by a new local program or a policy decision in the budget. It's a cost the town must absorb based on the structure of our current employee benefits and the premium rates established throughout a state system. Similarly, as we discussed, the town remains on a plan to fully fund our unfunded pension liability. That's an important long-term financial commitment that we made many years ago. And staying on that schedule requires a 4% increase in pension expense to the general budget this year. We're also seeing increases in other townwide obligations. Insurance expected to go up 9%, payroll tax and workers' comp up 13%. And really, these are costs that don't serve one department in particular. They support, the entire town, including the school. Debt service is another important example. In recent years, the town has taken a more disciplined approach in addressing some of our long-term infrastructure needs, including water and sewer infrastructure, the school building infrastructure, and other major public assets. Those capital decisions ultimately turn into debt service, and in 2027, the budget is calling for about $7.6 million, which represents 9.7% of general fund operating expenses. And just a reminder, the town has a fiscal policy where our goal is to stay below 10%. So we're just a tick under that goal for our debt service. So when you look at these shared townwide expenses, they represent nearly 1/3 of the general fund operating budget. And this category by itself is going up by 5.2%. So when you start to hear of 2.5%, Prop 2.5, it starts to make you understand how can you get there if these costs that you have longer-term financial commitments are going up 5.2% by themselves. Next, if we turn to our school department, the school department recommended budget is increasing by 3.25%. That's down from the original request, which is closer to 4%. As a reminder, about 80% of the school's operating budget is salaries or labor costs. And FY27 is the second year of their collective bargaining agreement that called for a 3% annual cost of living adjustment. The school department is also planning to use about $168,000 of funds carried in the Nahant revolving account at the end of 2026. And they're also forecasting at the end of the year that account will have about $260,000 remaining in that revolver. Next, we look at the rest of town government, which of course includes police, fire, public works, the library, town hall, and other municipal departments. That portion of the budget is increasing by approximately 3%. This portion also funds the recently finalized new 3-year collective bargaining agreement for the police department, as well as containing salary reserve amounts for some of our other open collective bargaining agreements, including fire, library, and DPW. So the reason this breakdown is important is that the total general fund budget number by itself does not tell the whole story. Town meeting should understand the underlying cost structure of the budget, which costs are driven by current year service decisions, which costs are driven by prior commitments, and which are shared obligations that support the entire town and the schools. If we go to the next slide. So just quickly looking at where our budget dollars go, if we look at our budget by service type, we see that 87% of the operating budget goes to key items such as our schools, employee benefits for current and retired employees, public safety, and debt service. So tonight, town meeting is being asked to appropriate the funds needed to support town operations in FY27. The primary source of funding for our budget is, of course, our property tax levy. If we advance to the next slide. So to determine the tax levy within the limits of Prop 2.5, we start with last year's tax levy base. Then we add 2.5% to that number, and then an amount for expected new growth, which we use $425,000. So before any use of excess levy capacity, this provides for an increase of just over $2 million. My phone has gone off, Eric. Thank you. So before we use any excess levy, we have about $2 million coming in from the standard levy. So we also know that while most of the budget is funded through the tax levy, we also rely on state and local receipts to limit the growth in the levy. State aid generally consists of two main categories: Chapter 70 aid, which supports our school system, and unrestricted general government aid, which supports overall town operations. State aid is actually one of the more positive items in the 27 budget. The current estimate shows that we expect to receive approximately $669,000 more net state aid in 2027 than we did in 2026. So from a state aid perspective, we have revenues that we receive, and there are also certain costs that get assessed to the town. But our net is favored by about $669,000. But we should recognize that while that's good news for 2027, we should also be cautious about expecting that to continue given the overall fiscal challenges that are facing the Commonwealth. Our local receipts are less favorable. So local receipts are the revenues the town collects from sources such as motor vehicle excise taxes, meals and room occupancy taxes, building permits, cannabis taxes, and investment income on our cash balances, among others. Local receipts are expected to be slightly lower in fiscal year 2027. And town meeting may remember that for many years we benefited from really high investment income when we were financing the new school. So that really gave us some funds that were really temporary in nature, and our 2027 investment income is expected to be much lower. But local receipts really are one of the limited options the town has to generate revenues outside of increased property taxes. And as we know, there are several pending and potential projects that could increase meals taxes, room taxes, and other local revenues, including the Hadley and the Vintage Square projects. But again, those aren't hitting us in fiscal year 2027. If we go to the next slide. So I know there's a lot on the screen here, but this is really how we're getting to the request for our excess levy. We start with our levy, we add our state aid, we add our local receipts and other revenue sources. And to balance it all to what we're presenting tonight from an expenditure budget, we need approximately $1.6 million of additional excess levy to make it all balance. This will leave the town with approximately $2.9 million of remaining excess levy capacity. So dollars that we could come to, as I said, and use next year or the year after. Next slide. Yeah. Tonight, the town meeting will also be asked to recommend budgets for our enterprise funds. So our enterprise funds are our water, sewer, solid waste, and PEG, which stands for Public Education and Governmental Access. These funds are typically supported by user fees rather than general fund property tax level. And the combined 2027 enterprise fund budgets are totaling approximately $9.1 million. Town meeting should also know that our water and sewer enterprise funds currently have deficits in their retained earnings. But the rate system has already been adjusted by the select board with the goal of restoring both of those balances over time. Next slide. So we've already touched on the town's pension and unfunded OPEB liability, but I always want to mention this to town meeting to make sure you're aware of the potential impact of these items because they're very important to our AAA bond rating. So as discussed earlier, we're in the final years of addressing the pension liability, but we have not yet developed any kind of comprehensive plan to address our OPEB liability. So this really remains a significant long-term liability for the town and one that we need to address as part of our broader long-term financial planning. Next. The town also maintains several reserve accounts which function like rainy day accounts. These reserves are really important for managing unexpected costs, preserving financial flexibility, and supporting our bond rating, which directly affects our borrowing costs. So our free cash balance currently stands at just over $2.5 million, and the town also has fiscal policies for each one of these reserves, and the policy for free cash is to be between 3% and 5% of general fund operating expenses. With that $2.5 million balance, we sit just above the 3% floor. And you might remember that we've had a couple of articles tonight that are going to impact free cash with the barrels of 330 and the previous year bills. So that's going to bring us down, but we already know about a $400,000 favorable amount that's going to come to free cash before we're certified. So we don't expect to drop below the 3% minimum in our free cash balance. We also have $7.5 million in general stabilization, which sits near the high end of our town's policy range, and approximately $1.7 million in capital stabilization, which is also slightly above the policy goal. So these reserves are really an important tool that the town has to manage unexpected issues, and they're also very important to the rating agencies that evaluate the town's credit worthiness. Next, please. So as I mentioned, tonight town meeting will be asked to vote on a proposed budget that provides level service to the town and uses $1.6 million of previously unused levy capacity. While we cannot tonight calculate the FY27 tax impact because assessed values are not yet known, the table on the screen estimates this year's tax increase using last year's assessed values. So for the average single-family home, the estimated annual tax increase would be approximately $346 without the use of excess levy, but if we approve the use tonight, that amount increases to $617. And for the median single-family home, the numbers would be $284 without and $507 with. Again, the real final impacts will depend on FY27 assessed values when the tax rates are set later on this year. So in summary, the Finance Committee supports the FY27 budget before you. It's a balanced, level service budget that avoids an operating override this year, but it does require the use of $1.6 million of excess levy. So now the town must continue working to control expenditure growth, evaluate recurring revenue opportunities, protect our reserves, address our long-term liabilities, and plan responsibly for future budgets. The Finance Committee recommends favorable action on the budget, and we welcome your questions and discussion.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Harmon. Thank you. So we will walk through the budget as amended here. Before we do so, if you arrived to the property tonight in a black GMC truck with a license plate 8T for Tango 4444, your lights are on. Okay, so we will walk through the budget as printed in your warrant, and keep in mind the changes made on the blue handout when we get to line item 72 or thereabouts. If anyone has any questions as we go page by page, just shout out hold and we'll come back to you to that section. So we're starting on page 14. Please remember that totals for each section are in the blue row below that section. Page 14. Page 15. Beginning with clerical salary and wages all the way down to personnel subtotal. Page 16. I'm sorry? Are you 15 or 16? Okay, could you just wait 1 second? We'll come back. Which section of the budget, please? Okay, thank you. Okay, what section, please? Okay. Anything else on page 16, ending in the office supplies and expenses? Is that a yes? Page 16, thank you. Just maybe shout as well so I can hear you, thank you. Anything on page 17, coming down to 16? Okay. Okay, thank you. Anything on page 17? Page 18, which takes us down to under item 34, personnel subtotal. Page 19 will take us down to snow and ice. Okay. Page 20 gets us down to the constables. Any questions on page 20? Page 21 gets us through emergency management. Okay, on page 22, that will take us down through the library. And then on page 23 is the last of the general fund appropriations. We can pause there and go back for questions? Anything on page 23? Great. Thanks, everybody. So we can come back up to, I think our first question was on page 14 for the assessor, Mr. Patsios.
Charlie Patsios, Precinct 5. See, Board of Assessors, Housing Authority, Water and Sewer, CPC. I might have left something out, I don't know. Eric, thank you for a great explanation, a tremendous amount of work, and I appreciate it. All that work that he just described tells us that the Board of Assessors sets a value. That value goes to the Select Board, who sets a tax rate. There's not enough money from the tax rate, so we have to use that unused tax levy. When we use the unused tax levy, it's still based on the value that we have currently for our homes. If we had a full-time assessor, I believe we would be closer to market value of our homes. We're still going to stay, the town is still going to need the same amount of money to operate the services that we all need. However, if our homes are assessed at a higher value, there's equity in our homes, there's not equity in our taxes. They're still going to need the same amount of money to operate, whether we use unused tax levy or whether we assess the properties at higher market value, what they're really worth. If they're really worth a higher amount of money, we should set the rate or the evaluation at that amount of money, because that will benefit every homeowner in the town. There's no such thing as equity in taxes, as I just said. But if the bank thinks your home is worth more and the town says your home is worth more and someone's willing to pay more for your home, that's equity. If we don't apply that process, we'll be using tax levy until we have none left. The benefit is that at the end of the day, the town gets what it needs, but we as homeowners have a higher value in our home. We have the equity. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think we had a point down here on the employee benefits.
Rick Kraft, town meeting member, Precinct 3. I noticed that employee benefits was going up 7.4%, which is like 1.2 million. Can you talk about sort of what's driving that to be so much higher than other increases?
Which page are we on now?
It's not in the line-by-line budget. It's in the summary that was, I mean, it's divided among dozens of line items, but in the summary at the beginning of the warrant, let's see, that sort of gives more high-level information.
The reference might have just been to healthcare costs in general. That's so healthcare costs in general are going up about 10% in the budget.
And that's in employee benefits?
It's in the HR section towards the end of the budget, but it's not line by line in each group. It's paid for through one component on the budget. I think it comes later than the section you're looking at.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, thank you. And I think as we got into the next page, we had a question down here. Yes, please come up to the microphone and introduce yourself. We're on page 16.
Good evening, Carol Schutzer, Precinct 6. On page 16, under the legal insurance, there's $232,000, and then below is $2,000 interest owed. I just was curious as to what the explanation was for that $2,000, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you.
Can you hear me? Oh, there we are. The $2,000 listed in the warrant under the interest owed line item is interest payable in the event of a settled appellate tax board case for property tax abatements.
I don't really understand what that means. If you could clarify that a little?
Sure. So in certain cases, if an individual applies for an abatement through the Board of Assessors and is granted, it rises to the level of an appellate tax board case, and that gets settled, they may grant interest that the town would be liable for because that individual or property owner paid property taxes and we held that money over time. So they may be entitled to statutory interest under certain circumstances.
So we don't know yet. It's just there in case you need it.
May not be used, correct?
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we had another question back here on page 16 as well.
Hi, Laurie Jackson, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 2. I applaud the Finance Committee for their extensive work on this, so thank you for that. Line item 18 on page 16, the second item entitled Recruitment and Entrance Exams went up 9,900%. Can you just clarify that, please?
Yeah. Sure. Those exams used to be in individual budget line items like police and fire typically, and there was a decision this year that it makes more sense to put them in one place just to manage the cost and not leave them in the individual budgets. So it's not really a change. It's not up. You'll see corresponding reductions in the police and fire budgets.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Were there any other? Yes.
Hi, Kate Green, Precinct 4, Capital Improvement Committee and Community Life Center Committee. Reiterate what everyone else has said. Great presentation by the Finance Committee and a lot of work. It really helps us to understand what's going on. I had a question on page 16, under line 20. Can you explain what the salary reserve is and why it's going up so much?
Yep.
Thank you, Ms.
Sure.
Green.
Thanks.
So salary reserve it's really a place that we put dollars for, typically for collective bargaining agreements that are not yet settled. So when we have contracts where we know we're going to have to pay something, we don't want to put a budget on a particular salary line item because we're in negotiations. So we carry dollars in there to cover expected salary increases from CBA renewals.
And which ones are coming up for agreement this year?
Fire, DPW, and I believe library.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the appropriations as amended? Okay, in this case, I'd like to see anyone in favor of the motion made by Mr. Hartman as amended by the blue piece of paper to please raise your hand. Thank you. All opposed? It is unanimous. We'll now move to Article 5, the appropriation for Community Preservation Committee. Mr. McDonald, do you want to take us through that one?
Okay. Greg McDonald, Finance Committee member and Town Meeting member, Precinct 2. Article 5, Community Preservation Committee. The Finance Committee recommends that the town vote to appropriate to reserve from Community Preservation Fund annual revenues the amounts recommended by the Community Preservation Committee for committee administrative expenses, historic resource reserve, community housing reserve, open space reserve, and budgeted reserve as printed in the warrant, with each item to be considered as a separate appropriation. I move the recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. Ms. Dreeben, do you want to take us through this one?
Yeah, per the presentation earlier, the total amount that's in this fund is 800-something thousand that was on the slide earlier. This article is just allocating it for this purpose. It's just saying, okay, now that we know we have the money, it's okay to use it for this purpose.
Thank you. Any discussion made by the motion? Any discussion on the motion made by Mr. McDonald? Yes, sir.
James Andrews, Precinct 1. I guess I'm a little confused. We've raised $800,000-ish, right? How much has the state given us in terms of any matching funds to that?
We didn't include the, Tom, just correct me if I'm wrong. The state is matching these funds. Historically, in the recent past, it's been about 16 or 17%.
So that's a lot less than the 40% we were led to believe when we voted on this.
There's a range, and we can't predict what it's going to be. The
Okay.
more towns participate in this program, the smaller each town's slice.
Okay. And then I'm looking at this, you're looking to basically reserve 5% of the 800,000 as administrative costs. That seems an awful lot of money to manage $800,000.
Right, that's why I explained that if we don't use all of it, that's the maximum we can use. We can't go over that. But if we don't use all of it, which we probably won't, it goes to the general reserve.
I'm asking these questions because as I talk to people in my precinct, their biggest fear right now in this town is they're being priced out of their houses. And so we seem to have this culture in this town where we will reserve money even though we may not use it. And right now, I'm talking to people who are concerned that they can't pay their bills. So I'm questioning why we should be reserving $44,000 or 5% of our money to manage $800,000. That's a really bad deal for the town. So I would suggest that we don't vote to support this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I call on the chair of our committee to speak to this one?
To address that question?
Yes.
Yes, please do.
Tom Dolly, Precinct 4, town meeting member. That 5% is allowed by the Department of Revenue each year, or estimated earnings for FY27. Now, we'll have some costs, legal opinions, grant agreement contracts, temporary signs, things like that, but nobody expects us to spend anywhere near that 5% figure. And of course, the good part is it has to go back into the CPA trust fund at the end of FY27 on the closeout. Does that answer your concern?
Thank you.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
If you don't need the money, don't appropriate it.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
I'd also like to ask if you could please clarify how the timing and the sequence between the funds that we raise in one fiscal year and then appropriate in the following fiscal year, and when the timing of the matching funds come back from the state. I know this is a new process for us, so maybe you could just recap.
Yes, this is a new process. So each November, we will receive our state match. And as Noemi said, it's roughly looking right now, the revenue looks about 16% maybe on the match from the state. But that number, that 16% is built into the estimated $855,000, which will be raised this year from your surcharges on your tax bills.
Great, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on the motion pertaining to Article 5? Yes, ma'am.
Debbie Friedlander, Precinct 6, town meeting member. If I'm not mistaken, the allocation of that 5%, isn't that part of how you have to structure monies from the CPA? When we first heard about this program, we understood it to be very structured by the state. There were rules. So part of your accounting, I'm sure, is that it designates that you put 5% aside for these legal fees or whatever. Is that, am I correct in that
Well, we
assumption?
did not have to take the 5%, but we have no idea with this startup on what kind of costs we will incur,
Okay.
especially legally.
All right,
Yeah,
so my question, so the state doesn't designate a certain percentage as you're figuring out your budget? You just decided on that
We
amount of
can
money?
take up to 5%.
okay,
So
so
we
right.
decided we'll
So
take the
it's-
max and then we'll give it back at the end of the fiscal year.
So it's part of the program?
Yes.
You have to do that? Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on the motion pertaining to Article 5? Okay, at this point, I'd like to ask anyone in favor of the motion on Article 5 to raise your hands. Thank you. All opposed? It is unanimous. Now, before we move on to Article 6, in my haste as a new moderator, I have been informed that we did not ask for any questions on the sections of the budget printed beyond the general fund, so anything to do with the enterprise fund. I just want to make sure that if anyone was expecting a chance to speak on those line items and I may have not given you a chance to do so, please let me know now. Otherwise, we'll continue on to Article 6. Thank you. Yes, you do have a question on, could you please come up to the microphone? Yep. Great.
Are we continuing on the budget? I'm sorry if I missed that.
Yeah, so when we went through page by page on Article 4, I stopped and didn't ask for anyone to ask if they had questions between the end of the general fund and the full budget. Okay. So I just want to, if anyone had any questions on pages 23 or onwards, we'll have to jump through a couple hoops to get back there, but if you have a question, I'm happy to. So
Okay.
do you have questions on?
Page 23.
Okay.
Okay, so Carol Schutzer again, Precinct 6. And if I neglected to say thank you to the Finance Committee, because it is a yeoman's job. And again, just was unclear on the bottom of the page where it says state assessments, not an appropriation. And it details school choice assessment and charter school assessment. On the top, under education, it has the vocational school as a separate line item, which I understood. So I was a little uncertain as to school choice assessment and charter school assessment, if you could just clarify exactly what that means.
Yes, the school choice assessment and the charter school assessment, they pertain to enrollment of students in charter schools outside of the public school district here. It's based on enrollment, and there's statutory formulas that the state applies to enrollment to come up with our individual assessment. And the school choice assessment pertains to students that are continuing education in other districts under the school choice statute that we're obligated to continue funding. The school district doesn't participate in school choice where other students from other communities are enrolling in the school district.
So when we see these percentages that go down, which it seemed like they did, is that because less students are involved? Is that how that number is reached?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. So, okay, so just to be clear about where we are in the plot tonight, we've already taken a vote on Article 4. Since there has been new information brought to light, if anyone feels strongly about reconsidering the vote that we took on Article 4 to reflect the information you just learned, motion to reconsider would be in order. Otherwise, we will move on to Article 6. Thank you. So, Mr. McDonald, would you like to introduce Article 6, please?
Yes, Article 6, amend the general bylaw revolving funds. The Finance Committee recommends the town approve Article 6 as set forth in the printed warrant. I move the recommendation to the Finance Committee.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. Mr. McDonald?
Yeah, I think that the only change here, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, is increasing the recreation revolving fund from 500,000 to 650,000. The other ones are the same as they are currently.
Great, thank you. Anyone wish to speak on the motion for Article 6? Yes, sir?
Dennis Piotr, Precinct 4. Just one question, just the recycling blue bins. We haven't been able to buy blue bins from Town Hall for quite some time, and if we're moving over to the new, I just don't understand why the recycling blue bin revolving account still exists, or what the function is of having it included.
Great. Thank you. Patrick?
You are absolutely correct. The recycling bin revolving fund was set up years ago when we were issuing recycling bins from Town Hall for purchase. That program's been discontinued, and in the future we'll have an article to close out the account, and it'll go to free cash.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on the motion pertaining to Article 6? Okay, all those in favor of moving forward with the motion, please raise your hands. Thank you. Any opposed? It is unanimous. Article 7 is our article to appropriate for Chapter 90 roadway improvements, and we'll hear about this from Mr. Schneider.
The Finance, Eric Schneider, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 5, Vice Chair of the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee recommends the town approve Article 7 as set forth in the printed warrant. I move the recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. Mr. Schneider.
Article 7 is a standard annual article that authorizes the town to accept and expend Chapter 90 roadway funding from the Commonwealth for eligible transportation and roadway improvement projects. These funds help offset local costs and reduce the amount that would otherwise be needed to support it entirely through local borrowing or taxation. The article is intentionally drafted broadly so that the town can accept not only the current anticipated allocation, but any additional funds that may later be appropriated by the Commonwealth during the fiscal year. The Finance Committee recommends favorable action on Article 7.
Great. Thank you. Anyone wish to speak on the motion related to Article 7? Seeing none, all those in favor of this motion, please raise your hands. Thank you. All opposed? It is unanimous. Article 8, Mr. Schneider.
The Finance Committee recommends that Article 8 be indefinitely postponed. I move the recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Thank you. Is there a second? As you probably recall, indefinite postponement is the equivalent of taking no action on this, and you might want to make sure that the impact of that vote is clear to any new members. All those in favor of the motion to indefinitely postpone Article 8, please raise your hands. Thank you. All opposed? It is unanimous. And that brings us to Article 9, our appropriation for FY27 capital projects. Mr. Schneider?
This one's long. Be patient, please. Oh. Good. The Finance Committee recommends that the town vote to appropriate $11,709,310 for the purposes and in the amounts identified in Article 9 of the printed warrant as shown under the column heading FinCom recommended in said Article 9, and to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, is authorized to borrow said amount pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7 or 8, or any other enabling authority to pay for the cost of said capital project, including, as applicable, equipping of capital items to be acquired, and all incidental and related costs, each numbered item to be considered a separate appropriation, with the budgeted amount to be spent only for each stated purpose. And further, that the amount of borrowing authorized hereunder shall be reduced by any grants received by the town for said projects. No amount shall be expended for the project described in line 33 of said Article 9 unless and until the town shall have been awarded a grant for that project of at least $150,000, and the amount authorized to be borrowed for this project shall be reduced to the extent of any grants actually received by the town on account of that project. I move the recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Thank you. I heard a second. I will draw the members' attention to the printed warrant that reflects the decisions of the Capital Improvement Committee. related to these projects. Mr. Shedd, do you have more comments on Article 9?
Yeah, I thought it would, make sense to go over them and discuss some of our highlights. So on behalf of the Finance Committee, I want to thank the Capital Improvements Committee, Town Administration, School Administration, Department Heads, and Facility staff for the significant amount of work that went into developing this year's proposed capital plan. The FY27 capital recommendation reflects a disciplined effort to balance urgent infrastructure need, long-term planning, operational realities, and affordability for taxpayers. As a reminder, and as outlined in Appendix A of the warrant, the Capital Improvements Committee follows a structured evaluation process that considers numerous factors and ranks each proposed capital project. The Finance Committee carefully reviewed both the proposed projects and the CIC ranking in making its recommendations. It is also important to recognize that the town cannot fund every requested project in a single year. Prioritization is essential, and not advancing a project this year does not necessarily mean the project lacks merits. So there's a couple key projects that I thought we could highlight now and then maybe avoid questions later. The first one is the Upper Jackson track resurfacing. That's one of the projects the committee strongly recommends, is the resurfacing of the track at Upper Jackson. This is project number 7 on page 29 of your printed warrant. The existing track has reached the point where it's unsafe to use for competitive track meets. The facility is used extensively by students, athletic programs, youth sports, and the broader community. The project was ranked a B, strongly recommended by the CIC, with an estimated authorization amount of approximately $1 million, which is based on a written cost estimate. The committee viewed this as an important investment in both public recreation infrastructure and student athletics. We also supported the middle school window replacement project. That is project number 41 in the capital plan. If you recall, last year, town meeting authorized a project to design the replacement windows at the middle school. This year, we're looking to fund the replacement windows themselves. We understand that the windows are at the end of their useful life, causing water infiltration at the middle school and need to be replaced, even though we are planning a major middle school renovations in a few years. Max Casper, the facilities director, has stated that any major renovation of the middle school would seek to preserve all or nearly all of the new windows. This project was ranked by the CIC as an A must-do priority with an estimated cost of nearly $1.8 million. Another project the committee spent considerable time reviewing was the high school paving and solar canopy initiative. This is project number 33 in the plan. The committee carefully evaluated the timing of the project, long-term return on investment, energy savings potential, grant opportunities, and overall cost feasibility. The current FY27 request is for the design phase only, estimated at approximately $300,000. Importantly, the design project is conditioned on receiving $150,000 Climate Leaders grant from the state. The future construction phase is also eligible for a $1 million grant, but we have to submit a design as part of that grant application. The project is intended to be sized to maximize long-term return on investment and offset a substantial portion of the high school electrical usage. It's also worth noting a couple projects that the Finance Committee did not recommend moving forward. The first one is, and maybe you've noticed it, the $3.5 million sewer-related capital project, which is tied to the state revolving or SRF process. That's project number 63 on the printed warrant. We all know how important it is to complete our sewer rehabilitation project, not just to comply with the EPA's consent decree, but also to ensure that our beaches become cleaner and safer to enjoy. This sewer project is not moving forward for 2 reasons. First, the Select Board had voted to postpone this project until a further analysis and discussion on sewer lateral repairs. Second, after discussion with the DPW director and the town consultant Kleinfelder, the town administrator recommendation was to pause its authorization and revisit potential funding at a future use due to timing of the current work and the timing of when the funds we would appropriate today would need to be spent. So last year, we authorized another $3.5 million to fund phase 2B of the sewer work. This project that was on the plan for this year would have funded phase 2C. 2B would not have been completed until late in 2027, and we would have to start construction and signing contracts for the phase 2C next summer. So we'd have to start the next phase before we finish the current one. And in any of these phases, it makes sense to first evaluate what we've done, is it working, and what's the next scope of work. So that's why it made sense to delay for a year. The proposed middle school classroom space improvements, this is project 39, were withdrawn by the school department. The primary reason was the anticipated long-term planning surrounding the proposed major middle school renovation. And the proposed gym technology upgrades at the high school and middle school were also not recommended to move forward this year. That's project number 56. That project was ranked as a C, nice to have, by the CIC, with an estimated cost of $150,000. Given the competing capital priorities and more urgent infrastructure needs, the Finance Committee agreed that this project was appropriate to defer. As mentioned by Mr. Hartman earlier, we have a long-term capital plan, and there's several significant projects on our horizon, which are listed on the 5-year capital plan, which is on page 38 of your warrant. These include a future DPW yard, the much discussed and anticipated major middle school renovation, and, believe it or not, an eventual high school HVAC replacement. This is the new high school, but it's 20 years old. We have to start doing what we didn't do before and start upkeeping our assets. So in closing, the Finance Committee believes that the FY27 capital plan represents a balanced and responsible approach. The committee recommends favorable action on the proposed article.
Great. Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak on the motion related to Article 9? Yes, sir.
Gary Barden, Precinct 3, member of ERAC. What kind of a copier cost $140,000?
Patrick, do you want to speak to that line item, please, and the difference between the prior years?
Sure. It's 12 copiers, not one, just to clarify for everybody. And this would be to purchase copiers versus in the past, the school district had leased them, and this was found to be more advantageous and would save the town money.
Thank you. Any others? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Anita Farber Robertson, Precinct 4, and a member of the Board of Registrar of Voters and a town meeting member. I would like to know on number 11, the 89 Burl Street, former Reach Arts accessibility and fire protection. For whom is that building work being done? Who is going to be the occupant?
Thank you. Mr. Connors?
That funding is in relation to the move of the VFW to that location, as discussed at the Select Board over the last 18 months or so. The money is meant to make sure that we can outfit the building for their potential use.
And is the town aware that the VFW is a private club, a closed membership, and only people who belong to that private club can use their facilities? And the town is paying for a private club?
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wishing to speak on the motion related to Article 9? Yes, over here.
So just want to confirm that the...
Sorry, could you just please introduce yourself again?
Sorry, James Andrews, Precinct 1. So just confirming the request here is for the 11.7, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then if we approve the 11.7, what does that do to our overall debt as a town? Are we incrementing debt, or is it neutral because some previous debt's already being paid off? What's the kind of balancing act here?
Thank you. Patrick?
So the capital plan that's before you for approval is additive. It wouldn't be net neutral in terms of our debt service that is funded through the budget. We have policies in place on how much debt the town can service in the budget. It's a percentage of budget. and the ceiling on that is 10%. We're close to the ceiling. We anticipate that these appropriations will fall within that threshold or, very close to it, but we have made some investments over the last few years with the new school and all these things, so we're higher on that threshold than we have been, 5 years ago.
So moving forward into FY28, FY29, there's an additive cost that's going to fall to the operating budget to support this debt.
There would be, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Evan Katz, Precinct 3, on Project 11, Burrell Street. What is the zoning of that property, please?
Thank you. Angela or someone from Ted?
Marcy, could you come over?
Where is it? Yeah, Angela?
Hi, Angela Ippolito, Planning Board member and Town Meeting member, Precinct 5. The building at Burrell Street you're referencing is in what is called a planned development district that was voted through town meeting a long time ago. I can't really remember, 10, 15 years.
So that's a residential type of zoning?
The underlying zoning is residential, that's right, but the overlay takes precedence.
So would the projected use of that as a alcohol serving establishment be permitted in that zone?
The purpose of the planned development district is to provide a benefit to the town or its residents that is considered more beneficial than it is negative, I suppose, but there has to be a specific purpose to it that is a benefit to the town.
Thank you.
I would suggest that if there's an anticipated use, that proposal come before town meeting prior to spending funds to renovate the building for that purpose.
Great, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Yes, sir.
Ken Norton, Precinct 3. Actually got a couple of questions. One, what is the 28 high school envelope improvements?
Thank you.
What is that?
Mr. Casper, could you help us understand the scope of that project, please?
Hi, I'm Max Casper. I'm the Facilities Director. The envelope improvements are improvements to the building envelope at the high school. So the envelope generally is the facade, roof, everything, encompassing the building. So it's various projects touching different things with that.
Okay, thank you. The other question I had was on the water meter replacement. Aren't we MWRA? And is there a way the MWRA, would have some sort of rebate program or something for that to cut the cost for us?
Thank you. Patrick, do you have any insight on that for us?
I would just comment that the motion language before you, any of these borrowing authorizations would be reduced by grants or any other funding opportunities that are available. So should that funding reveal itself, it would reduce what would be borrowed.
Right. So just to reiterate that point, the amount that's listed here would be the maximum that we would appropriate. We're not obligated to spend that amount. Any unspent amount against any of these projects would then be returned once the projects are closed. Did you have a comment on Article 9?
I do. Jennifer Murphy, Precinct 2. Regarding the resurfacing of the track, am I mistaken that it's already the wrong size, so they can't use it for formal meets, and will that be corrected, or are you just resurfacing it as is?
Thank you. Mr. Connors?
It will be for the, resurfacing and repaving beneath the resurfacing so that it will last hopefully another 20-plus years. It is of a standard size from the vigorous head shaking I'm getting from the superintendent right now. So we'll maintain the size as is.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Bonnie Levine, Precinct 6, meeting member. I'd like to propose an amendment to item 11 as shown in the budget. I'd like to move that there be further discussion and that that item be stricken and deferred for a future discussion time.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Levine. Could you please bring the amendment to the clerk to just review that it's in the right format? Is there a second? Thank you. Just give us 1 second to... No pun intended there. All right, thanks everyone. So where we're at in the plot here, we have an amendment before us that would essentially strike Project 11 from the FY27 capital project list and reduce the amount of borrowing by the amount that goes along with that reduced expenditure. Great. So it's a $600,000 reduction to the FY27 capital plan. Does anyone wish to speak for or against this amendment? Mr. Germa.
Joe Germa, Precinct 3. This building has a history of being a town-owned building that hasn't been able to be used efficiently. There was a period of time it sat empty. It was used for storage. When Reach Arts was in there, their ability to lease the whole building out was very limited because of the building's deficiencies. ADA is really important. The basement of that building is the only space that is accessible. I know with Reach, I had worked with them to try to figure out how to get accessibility up to the other floors. For this to be an asset in the town, no matter what use it has, it really needs to be brought up to a standard that it is a valuable property. So I would highly recommend not removing this from the budget and getting that building into a position that however it's being used, it can be used appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Stephen Iannacone, Precinct 4. Question comes up in discussing this. Is there any problem with postponing this work until a later date? So like, is something going to go wrong with the building if it's not done this year?
Thank you. Ms. Phelan, do you want to speak to that?
Good evening, Katie Phelan, Chair of the Select Board, and what am I now, Precinct 3, Town Meeting Member. So the issue is timing. B'nai B'rith Housing has put forth a eligibility for funding. This fall is the decision for that funding, so we will know in the fall if they received funds to build the project. The construction would begin a year later. So if we do not start construction on the building to make it hospitable for the veterans and the post, then there could be a period of time by which Benet needs to tear down the post building as it exists today in order to redevelop it for the housing, and the veterans would be displaced for a period of time until we were prepared to welcome them back to Burl Street if that's what you all voted to do. So,
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the amendment? Yes, sir. Mr. Katz?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I don't believe there have been any neighborhood meetings about this conversion of this property. Maybe it's a good idea, maybe it's not. Is there sufficient parking? Is this the kind of use we want to have in that particular neighborhood? I'm not sure we've had a thorough discussion of that. I think it's premature to renovate a building for a use that hasn't even been discussed with the neighborhood, and I would recommend passage of the amendment.
Great, thank you. Any other, Mr. Patsios?
Charlie Patsios, Precinct 5, a United States Navy veteran, and I'm utterly shocked that this has even come up. For you that don't know, that building was constructed by the American Legion at no cost to the town of Swampscott. It was home of the American Legion until we consolidated and we let the town use the building for free. No cost whatsoever, folks. For those that served and didn't return home, I think they paid the ultimate price. I think we all benefit from freedom. I'm shocked, disappointed, let down. I could continue, but I'll end with that, descriptively anyways. The town received the building at no cost from the American Legion when it asked for the deed to the property. We didn't hear anybody come up and say, they shouldn't do that. What neighborhood is it in? Nobody asked any questions like that. I can't believe this is happening. So when the veterans need a place because we've been removed from the one that we're in as a lease, and I can go into details about other land that the town received for free from the veterans. We've never asked for anything. But the little that you've given us, you want to take away. You want to take that away. That is un-American. It's not the Swampscott that I grew up in or raised my family in 35, 36 years now. This is an indication of commitment to the veterans, to the town's legacy, its history, and tonight will go down in history with a few people that want to displace the veterans again. We've given the land hundreds of thousands of dollars up here around the high school at no cost that the town sold and profited on. No complaints from the veterans. We got the VFW on Pine Street. We put the building up. We received it as a lease. The town said it needed it for veterans for housing, B'nai B'rith housing. What did the veterans say? That's fine. Where would you like to put us? Oh, we're going to put you in the building that you used to own, that you gave us for free, and now some of you don't want us to have a home. Shame on you. Enough said.
Thank you, Mr. Patsios. Sir in the back. 1 second, please. Can you? What is your point of personal privilege, ma'am?
Mr. Patsios, Anita Farber Robertson, Precinct 4. Mr. Patsios made what I take as a personal affront. I have nothing against veterans or supporting our veterans. If this had been the Disabled American Veterans group, they are an open group. They are not a private club. I'm discussing the difference between a private club and an open to the community group. This is not about do you like veterans or don't you like veterans, do you support veterans or don't you support veterans. It's about private groups versus open use for the community.
Thank you for the clarification. Gentleman in the back wish to be recognized to speak.
Excuse me. Robert Baker, Precinct 6. I think we've gone through this process of finding an appropriate way to house the veterans that are here today with us, that are survivors and that need our care and service. It wasn't always the case. I was involved in the transfer of that property to the town, and what had happened was that particular veterans organization had gone down to just a few members. They'd aged out, and the president, who was no longer a participant, had moved to the Cape and offered to deed that property over to the town. And it was a convenience to everybody involved, and it's actually irrelevant to anything that's going on today. We've already spent a lot of town meeting time figuring out how to best serve the needs of those veterans in our community, and I certainly discourage this amendment.
Thank you. So the question before us is whether to amend the capital plan by striking Project 11 and reducing the amount of borrowing appropriately. Does anyone else wish to speak for or against this amendment?
Mr. Moderator.
Okay, yes, Ms. Phelan?
I'd just like to further clarify that the $600,000 is not just to outfit the space for the particular use, the veterans' use. It's mostly for accessibility. So if the veterans don't end up being the use forever, then that benefit still benefits all of us in this room for whatever use occurs in the future. So I understand $600,000 is a lot of money, but the benefit to us as town meeting members is not just to service the veterans, but for whatever other use may come forward, including accessibility to other levels of that building, which are not being used by the veterans.
Thank you. I did see one hand in the back here. Ma'am, would you like to speak on this matter?
Hi, Kim Martin Epstein, Precinct 3, and chairperson of the Affordable Housing Trust. We have talked about this, and it was in the context of the housing project that will be using the space that currently houses the VFW. I want to make sure that we're clear on the narrative here. Nobody should be speaking against housing veterans, whether it's the affordable housing that's going to be built by B'nai B'rith or by creating another space for the VFW so that the housing can be built. This is a package deal that benefits the town and the veterans. We have spoken about this and our commitment to the veterans. And just because a VFW is a private community it doesn't matter. We have been housing a VFW already on town-owned land. We've been paying for the veterans to have the VFW that they have, and we're going to continue to pay for it in another location a few hundred meters up the street. And it's a great bang for the buck. It's a great bargain for the town to create accessibility in this space because we're going to have incredibly high-quality housing, and we're going to have a really well-appointed VFW that is accessible. And as Katie mentioned, a building that has been difficult to use in any event, and now the veterans will be able to use it and sublease it and, basically maximize the benefit of this building that hasn't been able to be used in, I don't even know how long, in its full capacity.
Thank you.
Mr. Moderator.
Yes, Ms. Phelan.
I just would also like to further clarify, the LDA directs B'nai B'rith Housing to make a payment to the town of Swampscott upon their occupancy. That payment, I believe, is $1.5 million. The idea is that the $600,000 would be spent today from town funds, but would be coming back to us through the LDA. So while, yes, this is an investment that we have to make out of our own pocket now, there will be funds coming back to us that were factored in the negotiation of the LDA in order to cover those costs to rehome the veterans to a new location.
Thank you. Mr. Burdorf. Oh, sorry, did you have a, okay.
Jeffrey Blonda, Precinct 2.
I just want to clarify, as a former commander of the Disabled Veterans, which is the largest veteran service organization in Essex County, this project is for the VFW. It doesn't include the American Legion or the DAV. So I just want to clarify that. When you say veterans, it's really just the VFW. I don't want people to get confused because the DAV does not use that space.
Thank you, Mr. Blonder. Anyone
As
else
a point
wishing
of
to-
clarification, Mr. Moderator,
Okay,
I apologize.
yes, Ms. Phelan?
The housing is for all veterans. Swampscott preference first. So I just want to make that clear that Mr. Blonder's reference is only to the post and not to the housing.
Thank you very much. Mr. Burdorf. Okay, thank you. So we'll now move to a vote on the amendment, which is to strike Project 11 and reduce the amount to be borrowed by $600,000. All those in favor of this amendment, please raise your hands. All those opposed? This amendment fails. We will now move back to the main motion that Mr. Schneider made around the appropriation for FY27. Remember, we are voting on the amounts indicated in the table under Finance Committee recommends. And please also recall that the Capital Improvement Committee has met and voted to support this appropriation. Are there any other members wishing to comment on Article 9? Yes, sir.
Mark Barden, Precinct 3. And I would suggest maybe add a column in here that has an explanation of what these appropriations are. Might save us a little time. I was wondering about 57 and 59, the staff and student device refresh. Can you explain what that is?
Thank you. Patrick, do you have an answer to this question?
So to answer your question, the school district has a technology replacement plan for both the staff devices and the student devices. Each student has a device, and I believe the cycle is a 5-year cycle. So this would be to replace a portion of the devices that are due for students and staff.
Great. Thank you. A laptop, electronic devices that students use in their studies. Thank you. That's a device. Thank you for the illustration. I also remind all members that Capital Improvement Committee meetings are public and the minutes are posted regularly on the website should you wish to learn more about the projects throughout the cycle. Any other members wishing to speak on Article 9 or the motion pertaining to Article 9? Yes, here in the back.
Andrea Moore, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 3. I had 2 quick questions. One was in relation to project number 14, the $50,000 budget for facilities director and DPW electric vehicles. How many vehicles does that include, and do we currently have a vehicle for that purpose, or are we buying one because we don't have one that we need to put into function?
Thank you. Mr. Connors?
I have a second one coming.
I'll come back to you once we, yes, sir, Mr. Connors.
So this is for one vehicle. Right now, we have each DPW director and facilities are both using vehicles that are very close to the end of their useful life. In the process of this discussion around vehicle purchase, there was one at the fire department and then DPW as well as facilities. We decided to cut that request from 3 to 1 so that we have the funds available if there's a catastrophic failure, but we will be looking at the usage across all 3 of those and across town staff to make sure that we either replace those vehicles in kind with an EV or something, or look at more of a model that would be a fleet model where someone will take, because they need it today, they'll take a vehicle for 3 or 4 hours versus having one automatically assigned to them. This is meant to be a fail-safe so that we can look at that use over a year. But if there's a catastrophic failure, we have funding available to us to replace that one vehicle.
Thank you for the clarification. And then the other question I have is in relation to project number 7. I know that I feel like this is like a dangerous word to say out loud, but I know in Marblehead, They had a Fund the Field program to raise money for their new, I think it was their turf last year. And I was just curious if a fund, not for the full $1 million necessarily, but I was wondering if a fundraiser model was considered rather than having this be taxpayer funded in entirety.
Thank you for the question. Mr. Kauschman, do you have any comments on that or not? If you don't have to, that's fine. So when we discussed this in the Capital Committee, again, the appropriations here are the maximum amount that the town would spend, and that would be reduced by any grants, donations, fundraising that sponsors of the project would be willing to provide.
Are the sponsors of the project willing to provide? Because if we appropriate the full amount, I don't think they would be willing to provide anymore.
I think if I could speak, and this is on behalf of the town at large, I'm not speaking specifically for school operations, but we are always looking for opportunities, whether it be an earmark, a private donation, or grants. And I know that the schools on the operation side or the general government operation side, we will always look for those dollars that are not taxpayer dollars first before we spend anything. Even if appropriated for the full amount here, we will continue to look for opportunities to lower that spend throughout the time.
Excellent. So we could find several large sponsors who could help defray the cost of the fields, who'd want to put their name on it and things.
We'd welcome donors. We can talk about how they would be recognized.
Right. Okay.
But feel free to connect them with us, and I'm happy to sit down with whoever the school committee designates to participate in any such conversation. But we're definitely not selling naming rights tonight, but we're open to the conversation with any private donor or any grant.
Thank you, Mr. Connors.
Thanks for that clarification, Mr. Connors. Anyone else wishing to speak on the motion pertaining to Article 9? Yes, sir. Yes, we will now move to a vote on the motion that Mr. Schneider made related to Article 9. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Which now brings us to Article 10, and I believe Ms. Phelan will walk us through the Select Board's motion.
Good evening. The Select Board recommends that Article 10 be indefinitely postponed. I move the recommendation of the Select Board.
Thank you. There's a second. Ms. Phelan, do you have any comments on this?
I do. As a point of discussion, this lateral bylaw has been on this warrant, on the prior warrant. We want to see it succeed. There have been a series of meetings that will be scheduled for June, September, and October to gather and consider further citizen feedback with regards to the lateral bylaw. We also, as a board, have taken up conversations involving betterment, which means if you need to have your lateral replaced, can you defer the cost of it until the transfer of your property so that you're not out the money that we are requiring you to spend in order to replace the lateral. And we think both of those conversations should happen in parallel so that when we come back to you, hopefully in the fall, with this bylaw, third time's a charm, we will also have some additional information for you all about how it will affect your budgeting for your home repairs and how we envision this working for each of you.
Great. Thank you. So the motion before us is to indefinitely postpone Article 10. Anyone wish to comment on this? Seeing none, we will move to a vote. All those in favor of indefinitely postponing Article 10? Thank you. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. That will bring us to Article 11, and I believe Ms. Fletcher will make a motion and then walk us through a brief presentation.
A brief presentation?
Oh, sorry, maybe Deb is doing the presentation. Would you like to make a motion?
Here, let me make the motion. Mary Ellen Fletcher, Precinct 4, Select Board. Select Board recommends the town approve Article 11 as set forth in the printed warrant with the deletion of no waivers that allow for the use of S at the end of Section D. I move the recommendation of the Select Board.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. Is Deb Newman presenting on this one?
How about if I, can I just
yeah, please
give me a shot here?
Yes, please continue.
So this article originated from a citizen petition article from Deb Newman, the founder of Speak Up for Animals. As a town, we already have this as a policy. What this article do is it will codify the policy. Passing this bylaw will ensure to help preserve the lives of rodent predators, such as hawks, owls, and other raptors, who have been destroying rats in our community for some time. And we want to make sure we protect them from this additional poison that they're picking up. So this is really important for us to pass this so that we protect these owls and everything else that's out there that's eating the rats that ate the poison. So please remember, this is for public property, not private property. The select board would really appreciate if you gave us a positive vote on this, and we can move forward.
Thank you. Do we have anyone wishing to speak on Article 11? Okay. I think, Ms. Newman, do you wish to speak to this? Okay, yes, please come to the microphone.
Hi, Deb Newman, Precinct 1, town meeting member. I know everybody wants to go home, but this will take 1 minute. And I'm not happy that we're going to remove the emergency waiver aspect, but I am happy to thank the Select Board for deciding to sponsor this article. I want to thank Health Director Jeff Vaughn and Facilities Director Max Casper for their agreement to a preliminary policy that prohibited eschars. An extra thank you to Max for his open-mindedness when it comes to protecting wildlife and his personal desire to do the right thing. And we should do the right thing by voting yes to pass this bylaw. As Mary Ellen said, the very predators who naturally keep the rodent population down are being destroyed by eating them, dying a horrible death from bleeding out. I've witnessed their suffering when I get the dubious privilege of transporting them to rehabbers who can only hope to save them because the damage done by eschars is so catastrophic. The federal government banned direct sale of eschars to consumers in 2008 because they are so toxic to humans, companion animals, and wildlife. Only licensed exterminators are allowed to buy and deploy them. It's taken this long for everyone to realize that no one should be putting them into the environment. Massachusetts legislators are working on a bill to greatly restrict their use by anyone, professional or not, and that would include private property. It would be great if any of you who has an exterminator would tell them to use an alternative and to consider Evolve, a rodent contraceptive bait. You'd save a lot of lives. For now, we can at least guarantee that the town of Swampscott never uses eschars again, so please vote yes, and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Newman. I do want to clarify the language of Ms. Fletcher's motion to remove a waiver. The effect of that waiver is still in force. The motion that Ms. Fletcher made is just to clarify a typo that was made in the warrant as printed. So at this point, we'll move to a vote on the motion pertaining to...
Oh.
Okay, yes, sir, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, everyone. John Jantis, Precinct 4, School Committee member. Actually, I had a question just on, since this could be on town-owned property, that's the applicability, is my understanding. Using the Hadley Hotel project as an example, would that be considered town property, or would that be private since the developer is doing that? If they had to do any sort of remediation for pest control, what category would that fall in?
Okay, so the question is, who's responsible for maintaining property that's turned over for private use?
Do you want Nick to answer that, or do you want me to answer that?
Ms. Fletcher, if you have an answer, we'd love to hear it.
Let me give it a shot. So they are going to be leasing the property from us. So I would say that it's really their under their jurisdiction. However, dealing with this group, they're very easy to deal with, so I think whatever rodent killer we want to use, they'll work with us.
Okay. Maybe Ms. Phelan can clarify the terms of the lease.
So they're governed by a land development agreement. So if the LDA recognizes that they must follow all applicable guidelines, regs, and bylaws of the town of Swampscott, then they would have to follow these regulations. As Mary Ellen just stated, we have very great partners at the Hadley project, and I'm sure if it wasn't in there explicitly, we could amend or ask them to follow that, and they would be happy to do so. I would be glad to take a look in the morning to see which situation we're in.
Great. Thank you for that. Do you wish to speak on this article? Could you introduce yourself, please?
I'm not a town meeting member, but I am named in this article, so I would like to say one thing.
Please do. Could you introduce yourself, please?
I'm sorry. My name is Jeff Vaughn. I'm the Director of Public Health for the town of Swampscott. My minor issue is just the CO2 part of it that is low risk, and it puts it into an emergency use category. Rats are smart. If they're in an area, they figure out what they shouldn't be eating, they learn their lessons from what happens around them. We need a couple of different options to be able to move in and do different things. So I'd like to have the option to keep CO2 in our regular arsenal without having to go to some sort of crazy emergency scenario. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. So the question before us is the motion as it was made by Ms. Fletcher, and I think at this point we'll move to a vote. Anyone in favor of? I didn't hear an amendment. Does anyone have an amendment to submit to the clerk? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote on the motion Ms. Fletcher made on Article 11. All those in favor? Thank you. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
And that will bring us to Article 12, which is the citizen's position pertaining to the same topic. Seeing no motion, we will move to Article 13. And I'd like to recognize Ms. Newman to introduce the motion she has pertaining to Article 13. Ms. Newman?
Hi, Deb Newman, Precinct 1, Town Meeting Member. I need help with the motion. I think I want to move to indefinitely postpone the article.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. All those in favor of indefinite postponement? Thank you. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously, and that article is indefinitely postponed. Thank you, Ms. Newman. And that. Just to clarify, Article 12 was a repetition of Article 11. There was no motion brought before me on Article 12, so town meeting has taken no action on that, and we've moved on to the next article. So Article 11 has passed, and there was no action taken on Article 12. Which brings us to our finale tonight, citizens' position, Article 14. So I do appreciate the tone in the room, and I would like to make sure that we honor the process that we have in town meeting, which is to allow citizens who've gathered the correct number of signatures to bring business before us. So I'd like to invite the sponsor of Article 14, Dr. Block, to come and make a brief presentation, and I'd like to ask my pal Shannon to put a 5-minute timer up on the board. Mr. Block, please introduce yourself. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm Larry Block, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 6. I also was on the Board of Health last year, where this article started. It was created by the Board of Health. It was voted on and approved by the Board of Health, and was voted to come to town meeting for a vote. It became a citizen's petition because I knew that I would not be on the Board of Health at this meeting. I move that the town approve Article 14 as set forth in the printed warrant.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. All right. Mr. Block, please begin your 5-minute presentation.
So I've been a cardiologist for 40 years, practicing in Linz, Salem, and at Mass General in Danvers. And I have to say, not every patient that I made a recommendation to or gave advice to took that recommendation or advice. And I have to say, I never minded that, and I always respected their opinion as long as I felt that they had an informed, that they were making an informed decision. So my goal tonight is to do a very quick PowerPoint presentation to explain what the health effects of wood smoke are, so that you can make an informed decision. This article is not to ban all fires in town. It is to ban wood fires based on the very significant health effects. There have been lots of published data on the ill effects of wood smoke over the last 5 to 10 years, such that not only does the American Lung Association and the EPA have come forth with major educational efforts to get rid of wood smoke, but there have been a lot of professional organizations. I happen to belong to this one, Doctors and Scientists Against Wood Smoke Pollution, and some of the slides I use tonight are from them. I obviously cannot give you any primary sources, but I'll try to summarize as best I can. Next slide. So wood smoke causes these very small particles, PM 2.5 they're called, that is, they're 2.5 microns. They're extremely small. Larger particles get caught in the upper airway of the lung, but these are so small they go all the way down to the very end of the lung into the air sacs. They're highly inflammatory, and they cause all sorts of lung problems. This is a study from Washington State indicating what kind of problems were in the hospital in 1 year attributable to wood smoke. They include thousands of worsened asthma symptoms, acute bronchitis 1900, fatal heart attacks. These chemicals, the PM 2.5, are so small that they get into the bloodstream, and they've been associated with strokes and heart attacks as well. Next slide. Wood smoke is extremely carcinogenic. It's been estimated to be 30 times more potent at inducing cancer than cigarette smoke. From the benzene and the aromatic hydrocarbons. Next slide, please. And this is not just theoretical. You may have seen this Boston Globe article in February where the United States government, bipartisan and signed by President Trump, agreed to pay forest firefighters about $500,000 each who came down with cancer. So we know that cancer incidence of lung, breast, colon are not only on the increase, but they're occurring in younger and younger adults. Now you're saying, yeah, these people spend their lives all day in a forest fire. Next slide, please. But again, they summarize the fact that in all the studies which have been done looking at the ill health effects of wood smoke, there is no safe level that has ever been found to be present. And as you can see, it's identical to that of passive smoking. Next slide, please. There was a study done in Southern California where they actually looked at beach fires and determined that the amount of pollution that comes from one beach fire, that is a fire pit basically, gives the same pollution as 800 cigarettes. And that's what children are being exposed to who are at the beach having these fires. Unfortunately, the media sort of shows that these kids around fires is sort of a wholesome thing. So there's definitely a sort of a media problem here. where it's not wholesome, it's extremely toxic to these kids. Next slide. Now, Massachusetts has recognized the ill effects of wood smoke, and there's a state law prohibiting all outdoor wood fires from May 1st until January. That includes fire pits, no wood fires. The one exception, unfortunately, in the law is to have a small wood fire for cooking. Now, I'm an Eagle Scout. I know a bit about cooking over fires, and generally those fires last about a half an hour where the wood burns to coals, and then you cook over the coals. Unfortunately, people are using this as a loophole to have a bonfire for 4 or 5 hours and calling it a cooking fire as long as they hold a marshmallow or a hot dog over the flame. The state,
okay, just one.
The state.
Can we please give?
The state leaves the enforcement up to individual towns. Next slide.
Thank you, Dr. Bach. Do you have any closing comments?
I'm sorry?
Any? Yes, sir.
Yeah, 10 minutes. I've got 10 minutes.
I wanted to make sure that Dr. Bach had part of his time reserved to respond to questions. If you'd like to wrap up.
I just have a couple more slides,
That's
please.
great.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Now, it's important to know that 22 towns and cities have already completely banned wood fires to get out of this loophole problem. And you can see the cities listed there. Now, indeed, most of them are cities, but Arlington, Belmont, and Brookline are towns which are heavily populated, densely populated. Next slide, please. It's important to know that Swampscott is the 5th most popular dense town in the state of Massachusetts. We have over 5,000 residents living per square mile. The average town in Massachusetts has 900 people per square mile. So we're 5 times more dense than the average town. There is no way that you can possibly have a fire in Swampscott without adversely affecting the health of a neighbor. Next. And we also have a higher than average geriatric population. 20% of the residents in Swampscott are over 65, who are most susceptible, other than children, to these ill effects. Next slide, please. This is just a busy slide showing that Nahant and Swampscott are the only 2 towns north of Boston. So between Boston and the state of New Hampshire, no other coastal town allows beach fires. It's only Swampscott and Nahant who are the outliers. Next slide. We can skip over this one. So this was this is what Fisherman's Beach looked like in December. The last fire that was allowed was, I think, in September. Nobody cleaned the beaches. So the question is, do we really want our beaches to look like this? So it's not just air pollution, it's also the way we want our beaches to look. Next slide. So the point is here that there are alternatives. You can take any propane source and bring it down to the beach. You can bring a propane stove, you can bring a propane grill, you can do a propane fire. So you can have your fire on the beach in your backyard without adversely affecting the health of your neighbor. Next slide. And again, this group that I belong to, Physicians and Scientists Against Wood Fires, show that children should not be breathing in smoke at all. Next. Now I want you to remember, I was on the Board of Health between 2002 and 2016. In 2015, there was a proposal brought to town meeting to do an artificial turf field using crumb rubber. I spoke on behalf of the Board of Health against that, saying it was too unhealthy for our children, too hot, too much off-gassing of chemicals, and indeed, town meeting voted it down which I was thrilled with. I then worked on the field committee, and we came up a year later with a completely natural coconut husk infill for our artificial field at Phillips, which has been the pride of the town. It's been great for 10 years, and it's worked very well. And I can tell you that every child that has ever been on this field is healthier because of it, and their future health is better as a result of the alternative from what was initially proposed. Final slide, please. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't be having fires. The fact is that there are alternatives to wood smoke. And I would strongly encourage you to vote in favor of this article to make our town safer and healthier. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Block, for that presentation. So the motion before us made by Dr. Block is to take favorable action on Article 14 as printed in the warrant. Does anyone wish to speak for or against this motion? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Helen Teeger, Precinct 6. I'm an elected member of the Board of Health. And because of the health and the risks of these fires, we, as the Board of Health, support this bill.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Joe Simons, Precinct 5. And Madam Clerk, I didn't sign in earlier. I wonder if you could sign me in. Again, Joe Simons, Precinct 5, town meeting member, but that's not why I'm up here right now. Dr. Block, I think that your goals are commendable. Your presentation, I appreciate the time that you're devoting to this town. But I would urge my fellow constituents to vote against this bill. At a time when so many of our children are spending in their rooms on tablets and there's an epidemic of isolation in Swampscott and the country at large, having a responsible cooking fire, the ability to do that, strengthens families. It bonds together families and neighbors and friends alike. It enhances the overall happiness and enjoyment of this town that we all live in and enjoy and pay so much to be here. I'm concerned not only for the potential to limit that ability to have enjoyment in our own homes and our properties, but I also am concerned at the enforcement. It explicitly calls for neighbors to take photos of our neighbors who are in violation of this bylaw that's proposed. I worry that it divides neighbors. It does the exact opposite of what we want to do in building community. It will tear at the very fabric of the community here in Swampscott. And for those reasons, I urge action against this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simons. Thank you, Mr. Simons. Yes, ma'am, in the back, please introduce yourself.
My name is Barry Atkin, town meeting member, Precinct 6. Referring to the previous speaker, I think there's a misunderstanding. This does not ban small cooking fires and family get-togethers. In fact, there's a lot of opportunities on the beach and in Swampscott for family get-togethers. I wanted to speak about the health effects. In addition to all the health effects listed in the statement, I personally know of a number of others because I've been exposed to wood fire smoke and have some allergies to it and get sick every time I'm near a bonfire. And that was voluntarily while I was part of a teaching program for high school students in outdoor survival training 50 years ago, and I still have those effects. I definitely support Article 14, and if people have some concern about enforcement among others, then make an amendment to Article 14. But it's definitely for our health. Is anyone here still a cigarette smoker? This is worse.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
I did receive advance notice from Ms. Encarnação, who asked to speak. So if she's still here and would like to speak, please introduce yourself.
Hi,
I'm Sarah Canasio. I'm in Precinct 3. I'm standing here tonight to express my strong opposition to this proposed warrant. While it states its purpose is to protect the community, the actual regulations within undermine our property rights and our privacy and our overregulated lives. For my family, this tradition is the heartbeat of our home. This tradition that has been passed down safely through generations in this whole country and my home. Personally, I feel targeted by this warrant. The process of wood-fired cooking is where our family recipes live, passed down from parent to child over the embers, teaching the patience and the craft that you simply can't get from a kitchen stove. Most importantly, this backyard fire is where we celebrate all of our milestones, from birthdays to graduations to most holidays. These gatherings are how we keep our family connected. Losing this would mean we would lose a vital part of our family identity. In a world where we spend so much time staring at screens, these fires are what get us out into the fresh air. They get our children outside and allow us to teach them real-world responsibility, how to properly tend to a fire, how to respect the flame, and how to manage it safely. But this goes beyond just my own family. These fire pits are a bridge to our community, whether it's sharing a meal or just sitting together for s'mores. These gatherings are a wonderful way to end a stressful day. They allow us to slow down, decompress, and build the kind of strong local bonds that make this town great in an age where people often stay isolated. A backyard fire invites people to actually get to know the people living next door. This warrant completely ignores the social fabric and unfairly targets some possible cultures and traditions that rely on live fire cooking. That's unacceptable. I believe this warrant is fundamentally flawed and an extreme case of overregulation for several reasons. It promotes the surveillance culture because in Section 4 it actually encourages residents to take photos of their neighbors and report them. We choose to live here because it's a free town. We're in a free country, not a restrictive homeowners association. We shouldn't be incentivizing neighbors to play detective and turn them into informants over a marshmallow roast. The elderly argument is misleading. The warrant claims to protect our seniors. However, many of our elderly residents are the very people who hold these traditions most dear. For them, a wood fire is a source of comfort and a lifelong link to their own heritage and their traditions. Regulatory inconsistency: most of us are permitted to burn wood indoors all winter to heat our homes. It is logically inconsistent to claim that wood smoke is a public health crisis in a wide open, well-ventilated backyard in the summer, not in the middle of a forest fire where it's coming from all directions, yet perfectly acceptable coming out of a chimney all winter long. By banning wood, the town would effectively mandate pressurized propane. A natural wood fire is more predictable. You can just get water and put it out. It doesn't carry the volatile pressurized risks of gas leaks or tank explosions, which we've seen multiple times in our neighboring towns. And those happen often. I've seen them in Lynn quite a bit. The warrant allows charcoal but bans wood and even targets the smokeless fire pits that punishes some residents who have already invested technology designed to reduce the smoke. And it threatens our historic beach culture, which is unacceptable. Many residents have invested thousands of dollars into professional outdoor kitchens and stone fire pits. This warrant effectively turns those functional home improvements into useless piles of rock overnight, unfairly impacting property rights and property values. The town has a long history of self-reliance, independence, and common sense. This takes away our rights, and it's simply a silly, unnecessary warrant to enact. There's no dire emergency to stop these fires. No issues have happened. A total ban is heavy-handed. A response that punishes the 99% of responsible residents and the potential mistakes of a few. If there are specific concerns, let's look at the sensible guidelines like regulating seasoned wood rather than a blanket ban that erases our traditions. I ask the board and my neighbors to stand up for property rights, our community bonds, and our freedom. Please vote no on this article. And just a side note, my husband, he has a heart condition. We've all, in a well-ventilated area, should be able to do the smoke. I know you're saying just a small particle can do harm, but it's not like we're in the middle of a fire, a forest fire, or anything like that.
Thank you very much. At this point, I'd like to see a show of hands of all those in favor of the motion made by Dr. Block pertaining to Article 14. All those opposed? The motion fails. At this point, we have dispatched all the business brought. Yes, what is your point of personal privilege? Yes. Yes, thank you for that clarification. Thank you. The new guy shine is still on me. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I appreciate that. So now we'd like to take a vote to end debate on Article 14, and that will bring us to a vote on the main motion. All those in favor of ending debate on the motion, this requires a 2/3 vote. Raise your hands. Thank you. All those opposed and would like to continue debate, thank you. We will now move our attention to the main motion made by Dr. Block. All those in favor of adopting his motion for positive action on Article 14, please raise your hands. Any opposed? Thank you. The motion fails. That brings us to the end of the business before us in the warrant. I'd like to enter this motion to dissolve. Is there a second? All those in favor of dissolving the meeting? Thank you very much for your participation and patience. We'll see you in the fall.